Welcome to Hawkeye Hangout here. This is a special March Madness edition of the show. I apologize for the brief delay. We had to delay the show from 9 to 9:30, but we are here talking Iowa hoops, March Madness style, and talking brackets. Is it possible that Iowa could make a run to the Final Four? Certainly not out of the question, and some pretty significant pundits have already penciled in the Hawkeyes to their last four, which is saying something in and of itself, given the names that have put that foot forward. We'll talk about those in a little bit. But first of all, a reminder, if you have not already done so, please subscribe. I need to do this at the beginning of each show anyways, and I tend to forget, and then it gets mixed into everything else. So please subscribe if you have not already done so. And I'm going to make sure my levels here are good. All right, I think we're good. I think we are good. Yes, please subscribe, share the show on social media. We'll be opening up the call lines for people this evening, but please tell everybody you can about the show and help to make this a success. I enjoy jumping on here and talking with everybody and getting your perspective on the tournament. And I'm going to share my picks. I'm going to share my bracket. I've had some ideas here over the past 24 hours about how we can make this more and more interactive. One way that I kind of brainstormed is potentially making a pool for all of you that would include me. And I would open that to any of you listening. If you want to submit a bracket to said pool and compete against me and compete against every other listener on here, we can do that. But I want to, if we're going to do that, I want to make sure that we've got support to do so. Okay. So if you are interested in doing so, please let me know. Let us know in the chat. Let me know by phone that you would love to compete. There's no money involved or anything like that, but you would love to compete in a March Madness not bracketology, but a March Madness bracket selection pool. Okay. If you're interested in doing that, please let me know, and I can get that put together here over the next 24 hours before the first games start. Now, there are games Tuesday and Wednesday. Those do not affect your picks. I actually made my picks I typically would wait, but I really felt pretty confident, regardless of who wins in those first four games. I felt pretty confident making my first round selections. So if we get enough response, I'll open that up, and you'll have until Thursday when the first round games, official first round games. I don't. Do they even consider the first four in that they considered first round, and maybe the other ones are second round? I can never remember. I think they're technically just considered the first four. They're not really part of a round. But we can make that available. So please let me know. Also, so everybody's aware, I'm going to be live each day this week. Okay, each day this week. That is the plan. So tonight, it's me and all of you talking, the pundits talking Iowa and their path to hopefully something special. We've already had some pretty special results this year for Iowa basketball. We're going to be talking about my predictions and how far Iowa will go in the tournament. Tomorrow, the plan is to be joined by Tony Perkins' uncle, who also happened to be his AAU coach, big mentor for Tony Perkins, and Frank Henderson. If you've not heard from Frank in the past, he's a former D1 college basketball player himself. And again, he's a coach, really good guy, and love talking to Frank. And certainly now with Tony Perkins' emergence and his development and confidence, I think this is going to be a fascinating interview. We'll get his perspective on the draw, his perspective on Iowa's first round matchup with Richmond, potential meeting with Providence in the second round. Although you'll see from my bracket, that's not so certain. And then on Wednesday, mark this in your calendar, folks, and I will do my best to promote it through Twitter, YouTube, Facebook. But you are the ones. I can't emphasize this enough. Like our banner says, you sharing it out on social media and telling your friends is how this thing gets spread. All right. It's how the word gets spread. We will have Coach Gary Close on Wednesday night. And I'm not going to get in at this point. I'm not going to say who else is going to be on that show. But let's just say there's going to be some big names. All right. There's going to be some big names on this show Wednesday night. Okay. Wednesday night at 7:30. Okay. 7:30 to 7:45, or excuse me, 7:30 to 7:15. It will be a 45-minute stream. Don't be late, because I'm not going to be late. We're going to make this work. And then the Rutgers game, starts at about 8:15 p.m. Central Time. So we're going to be finishing up right as that game is starting. So we timed that out. So we have 45 minutes. And again, it's going to be Coach Gary Close, myself, and some big Hawkeye names. I'm not going to get into who it is yet because I want to hold off on that, and we'll make an announcement tomorrow. And we're still in the works on a couple. So, but appreciate everybody being here tonight. I want to run through everybody who got here early, and no surprises. Darrell MVP 24. I always forget the 24, sir. Darrell MVP 24. Good to see you here. He says that Iowa will make the Final Four. Someone else stick out your neck. Darrell MVP, or excuse me, the Darrell Hayden. Darrell MVP and the real Hayden. Excuse me, Hayden. He says, I like our chances to get through KU to the Elite Eight, but if Auburn gets there, I don't know how we would deal with Kessler and Smith. If I'm being honest, I didn't think we'd be able to beat T-Well. Here's the deal. Let's remember this. And, of course, he's talking about Trevion Williams. Let's remember that Iowa did face Walker Kessler when he was at North Carolina a year ago. Now, I know it's a different team. No Nunji, no Garza. So I understand where Hayden's coming from, but they are familiar with Kessler. Ari Gold says, y'all know who called Iowa in the Final Four first. Go Hawks. I'm telling you, it's not out of the question. Ari Gold says his Final Four, Zags, Kentucky, Arizona, and the Hawks. Harpo, good to see you here as well. Iowa versus Iowa State, potential rematch. Can't believe Iowa State made the tourney, but now I feel like they've been emboldened to perform like they did in the first half of the season. Hawkeye Howard, good to see you here, sir. Hopefully you're doing well. I know you're a Midwest guy. I'm hopeful that the weather is doing just fine. I know you're south of us here in Iowa, but hopefully you're doing well. Beautiful day, by the way, here in central Iowa. If we could have this weather from here on out in March, I will be a happy, happy, happy man. Joe, thank you for being here. If we can avoid foul trouble, we can beat anyone. And Hayden, it's okay if you hit the dislike button. I did not get that, but I'm not going to take it personally. Joe, thank you for being here. Appreciate your support. Connor, he says, hey, Corey, I'm a 16-year-old boy, and I listen to your show for football and basketball content. I'm a huge Iowa fan. You really inspire me because I'm sorry, I can't read. It's not your fault, Connor. I just can't read tonight. You really inspire me. I'll start over. You really inspire me because I want to do what you do for a living. Okay, thank you. Well, thank you, Connor. Appreciate you listening, and that really makes me feel flattered and privileged to be able to. If I'm inspiring to anybody, I appreciate that because certainly I enjoy doing this, and I would encourage you if you're aspiring to start a YouTube channel and to start a podcast, do it now. I mean, I want to say when I started podcasting, and I just did it for fun with my brother. My brother and I really started podcasting when I was probably your age, probably 16 or 17, Connor. And I've been doing it ever since. I'm about 10 years older than you because I'm 26, if anybody's wondering. In case you didn't know that, I'm 26 years old now. So that was 10 years ago, but I love doing it, Connor, and I would encourage you to do it. But appreciate you listening, man. I appreciate that. Okay, Brian. Tony makes everyone better when he is on the floor. There's no debate here. Ann Chambers, we enjoy Hawkeye of the Storm. You're awesome, Corey. Well, thank you, Ann. Appreciate that. Ryan, how important is Connor Mack to this team? He is without question one of the 5 guys you want on the floor when the game is on the line. We made a big play. He made a big play against Purdue. He made a huge play against Purdue. The and one going through one of the biggest guys in the league, not named Kofi Coburn. What a huge play to make that and one. Remember, the lead had been cut to 1, I believe, at that point. And Connor Mack just drove the ball inside and put up a heck of a shot. And so impressed with him. He's a leader. I want him back next year. I think we'll get him back next year. That's my prediction. March 728 says, Corey, when are you getting back to the gym? When are we getting back to the gyms to play some ball ourselves? I think I know who you are, March 728. But there's a couple different people in the chat who have names similar to you. So now I think I know who you are. Very soon, let's do it. I'll just call you Mart. Let's do it, Mart. Let's get back in the gym. I got to get my another procedure on my shoulder coming up. I've got a big bulky brace right now on my knee, and I got a procedure coming up on my shoulder. So once I get through that, I'm all in on basketball and hoops. No question about it. Kurt, thank you, Kurt, for being here from an Iowa transplant living in Alabama. Well, I'm glad we can make the connection, Kurt, and I'm glad you're here supporting the show. Very much appreciated. Michael says, Corey, love the show. Football and basketball, all from Vail, Colorado. Keep up the good work. Good to see you here, Michael. And I'm not sure where Vail is. I know I got family in Delta, Colorado, so not sure the distance, but glad you're here nonetheless. RPH. If they do face Auburn in the Elite Eight, who do you think wins and why? I'm going to get to that, RPH, because it was brought up earlier. I'm not going to give it away because I'm going to show my bracket here in a little bit, but I'll certainly get into why I picked who I picked in the bracket selection. Clayton, thanks for being here. Keep expectations low. Be excited for more. I said it this whole weekend. I've said, look, these last 4 days, you have to acknowledge the fact that none of us expected Iowa to win the Big Ten tournament. And if you're saying you thought Iowa at the beginning of the season, you thought Iowa in March would be Big Ten tournament champions, if you said you thought that was going to happen, either you were just pulling a straw out of your hat or you were just lying. I hate to say that because nobody believed. Maybe the players did. Maybe Keegan did. Maybe Jordan did. But, Fran we keep talking about that. Fran had not won more than one game in any single Big Ten tournament since he became the head coach here. So for him to get this done with this group of players after losing Garza and Nunji and Frederick and Wieskamp, I cannot say enough about his coaching. So absolutely right, Clayton. If Iowa were to exit early, which would be terribly disappointing, if that were to happen, can we just acknowledge that the season is a success? Let's not put all of our chips on the NCAA tournament. I understand a lot of people do that, and the media feeds into that. We make the NCAA tournament larger than life. There is much more to the season than the NCAA tournament, and that's proven by what we saw this past week. We saw tears from Fran McCaffrey and his family post-game. We saw tears from Patrick and tears from Joe Toussaint. This was an emotional week for the players, and you just can't be happier for them. So regardless of what happens in the tournament, I think we're in store for good things. Regardless of what happens in the tournament, this has been a success in my mind. All right, you can quote me on that. Jordan, thank you for being here, Jordan. Big name going to be a live commit reveal from Cooper Koch. I'm not going to go that far. Boy, wouldn't that be special? I'll talk to JR and we'll make sure that when Cooper announces that hopefully he's announcing he's going to be a Hawkeye someday, he'll do that right in our show. We'll see if we can make that happen. Connor says he almost cried when we won the Big Ten championship. I think a lot of people probably did just because they're happy for the players, Connor. And certainly, I think I'm a big proponent of you can get way too involved in sports. There's things that are much bigger than sports, but emotion is good. And I think you do kind of build an emotional connection to Fran, and you build it to the Murray twins and their story and Jordan Bohannon, even though some people really don't like Jordan Bohannon. He's Iowa. He's what Iowa basketball is about. And, nothing wrong with getting emotional in that way, being happy for some people that really have worked their tails off for this moment. Durrell MVP says, are we allowed to talk about the seeding of teams or just about Iowa today? We can, Durrell MVP, but I'm just warning you right now, you and I both know, I love you. There are a lot of people in the chat love you, but some people are here just for Iowa, so we got to kind of tone some of the extracurricular talk. I'm happy to talk about whoever, but let's just stay balanced and not take up too much time on the ins and outs of the draw. Tim says, Spartan fan here. You guys are good enough to get there. Thank you, Tim. Spartans have a tough draw. We might be in store for an Izzo Coach Kate matchup in the second round. But you never know. Merv says it seems so strange to hear major network people saying Iowa will reach the Final Four. Isn't it odd? Isn't it odd? John says, are the seeds locked in before the conference tourneys because Iowa is a candidate for a 4 seed? So, John, in answer to your question, I'm assuming you're talking about the NCAA tournament seeds because a lot of people did think that Iowa would move its way up to a 4 seed. But if you remember my conversation with Tim Kruger before the tournament, it was pretty much, I know Joe Lenardi moved Iowa to a 5 like after day one of the conference tournament, or maybe day two of the conference tournament. But like it was pretty much consensus that Iowa was a 6 seed heading into the tournament. It's going to be hard. I don't care if you win 4 or 5 games in 4 or 5 days. It's going to be hard to move up 2 seed lines based upon 4 to 5 games, especially when that first one's against the Northwestern team. That doesn't help your resume at all. You know, maybe the Rutgers game helps you, but I'd have to look back. I don't believe it would have been a quad 1 win. I think the Indiana game was. My point being, John, I never really thought that Iowa was going to be a 4. I thought it was a possibility after beating Purdue. But I think a lot of that hype was just in the media and how people perceive the conference tournaments, and we get ahead of ourselves. We think that there's more to the conference tournaments than there is, and that's how I would explain it. I just never expected Iowa to be a 4. But John, I said this yesterday. I'll say it again today. It's not that big of a deal. If they had been the 4, say in their region, first of all, they wouldn't have been the 4 in their region because they probably would have gotten in as the last 4 seed, and they would have been in Gonzaga's region, which actually would have been a bad thing. Had they been the 4 in the region that they're 5 in, they would have been in Providence's section, and maybe you move Providence down to where Iowa's at. Okay, so now Iowa gets South Dakota State and Providence gets Richmond. Is that an advantage for Iowa? I mean, South Dakota State's 30-4. I think South Dakota State's more dangerous than Richmond. You got to play the other seed anyways in the second round. You're the 4, you got to play the 5. You're the 5, you got to play the 4. So I'm really not too concerned about that, John. I just think in answer to your question, it would have been so difficult and they would have needed a lot of help. And I just don't think it was reasonable that the 4 was there. I thought Iowa got seated pretty much where they deserve based on resume. Now, based on how they're playing like a 2 or a 3 seed. I think we can agree with that, right? I mean, they're beating everybody in front of them right now, minus Illinois. They lost on, a missed shot by Chris Murray. Imagine if they'd won that game in Champaign. I think they would have been a 4 seed. I think if that shot goes down by Chris Murray in Champaign, I think Iowa's probably a 4 seed because that would have been a high quad 1 win on the road. And that's how close it is. I mean, but again, I just don't think it's that big of a deal. I understand the question, though. Ice Prod, he says, what do you think about Wichita State? I can answer that. I haven't really looked in depth at Wichita State. Where is Wichita State? That's a great question, Ice Prod. Let me find Wichita State here. Is Wichita State? They're in the field, right? Am I dreaming here? I'll get back to you, Ice Prod. I don't even remember Wichita State in the field of 68, but I guess I'm wrong on that. You're not in the Midwest. Tell me what region they're in, and I can go to that part of my my bracket. Yeah, why am I not? I'm not seeing them here, folks. So unless I'm just missing them, are they in the NIT? I haven't really looked at the NIT. Okay, Ice Prod says they're not in. I didn't think they were. Well, I don't know. Where is it? Wichita State? Have they really recovered from the Greg Marshall fiasco? That program was rolling before the Greg Marshall scandal, and it just doesn't seem like they've recovered. I can Google Wichita State's record here. I really wasn't following the Shockers. Obviously, they've had a lot of success in March over the years. They finished 7th in the AAC. I can tell you that. Their final record was 15-13. Yeah. So are they in the NIT? Maybe they are. But no, it says Drill MVP says they weren't even in the NIT. So I feel bad for Wichita State because that's a very passionate fan base. You'll recall the success in March that they've had, but it seemed like that Greg Marshall situation really derailed them. Jack says, let me make this a little bit bigger for everybody. Iowa sucks. Iowa sucks. Why are you here then, Jack? Why are you listening to this show if Iowa sucks? I just don't know. Why are you here? Thanks for letting me know they suck. Didn't know that. Appreciate you letting me know. Okay. Okay, we're gonna get to my draw here. Salvador, thank you for being here. Andy, thank you for being here as well. Brian E., if I didn't mention you earlier. All right, so the pundits that have talked about Iowa being a Final Four team, Okay, well, we're going to start with a guy that I'm sure everybody's familiar with. How can you not be if you claim to be a college basketball fan? How can you not be a Dick Vitale fan, or at least know who Dick Vitale and respect what he stands for? Perhaps you don't like Dick Vitale's way of calling games, but certainly you respect Dick Vitale for the person he is. He's done a lot of great work for cancer research, and certainly his fight against cancer has been well documented. Um, Dick Vitale's got Iowa in the Final Four. He's got Iowa in the national championship. Interestingly enough, he's got Iowa matched up with Tennessee in the Final Four, a team that I also have in the Final Four. He's got Iowa defeating the Volunteers and playing the Kentucky Wildcats, who he's got beating Gonzaga in his Final Four. So Kentucky versus Iowa, and he's got the Wildcats taking the national championship. Now, here's what I know about Dick Vitale, just to put this into context. Dick Vitale is a big fan of Fran McCaffery. That's been well documented. There's the connection due to cancer research. There's the connection due to Patrick having the thyroid cancer back, 5-6 years ago. I'm not saying you don't trust Dick Vitale with his picks, but Dick Vitale's probably going to admit that he's a bit biased. I think he really respects Fran McCaffery. All right, now the other pundits, Clark Kellogg was one that he's got Iowa in his Final Four. You've got Andy Katz, who's got Iowa in his Final Four. I respect both of those guys. Andy Katz, I think, really likes to hear himself talk. I'm not trying to knock Andy Katz. I think he's just kind of a long-winder. I guess you can call me that as well. I'm a long-winder. I would love to, and I haven't had time to do this yet today, but I would love to go back and look at those guys' predictions in past years. Not that that means anything for this year, but I would love to go back and see how accurate those guys were. Clark Kellogg was the one that made me furrow my brow, because Clark Kellogg is not just going to throw, he's the only guy out of those four people. And the other one we didn't mention was Reese Davis. Clark Kellogg's the only guy who's actually played the game at a high level. Reese Davis I respect Reese Davis immensely. Reese Davis is one of the best in the business. ESPN needs to hold on to him for dear life, because he is absolutely fantastic at what he does, not only with college football, with college basketball as well. He's got Iowa in his Final Four, but Clark Kellogg is the one that if I'm an Iowa fan, I'm really intrigued by, because I don't believe Clark Kellogg has any reason to favor Iowa. You heard other CBS pundits like Seth Davis, really not that high on Iowa, said Iowa's going to lose to Providence in the second round. Whatever. We talked about that yesterday. So Clark Kellogg predicting Iowa in the Final Four is significant. With that being said, where do I have Iowa in the NCAA tournament? Where do I have Iowa heading? How far will they get in the tournament? Well, I'm going to show you here. Let me take down this banner, and we're going to take a look at my bracket that was filled out today prior to the first four games, which will start tomorrow. Perhaps I can share you this. Every time I actually want to do it, it disappears. Okay, here we go. My filled out men's basketball bracket. We start in the West. Nope, don't want to do that. This is going to be an experience, folks, so bear with me. I don't know why Vermont is highlighted. Get off of there. Okay. West Region, you got Gonzaga and Georgia State. Of course, I have the Zags taking care of business against a very inferior Georgia State team. I've got Boise State over Memphis. I know Memphis has been playing better. They lost a lot of games early. Boise State has been steady Eddie. They've kind of been the underrated underdog team in the Mountain West. And for the record, I've said this before, I'm not as high on the Mountain West as some people are. But I do think Boise State is more grounded than Memphis. They've been more consistent all year. They didn't play the toughest non-conference schedule, but Memphis really didn't play well in the non-con anyways. I've got Boise State, the Broncos, advancing to face Gonzaga. Connecticut. I've got Connecticut moving on against New Mexico State. New Mexico State really does not have much of a resume at all. Played a very weak schedule. Not real impressive with the schedule they had. I've got them losing to the UConn Huskies. All right, now here's where my bracket begins to get interesting. And yes, I know we talked about doing a pool, so if people really trust my judgment, I guess you can steal my upsets. Not that my picks are any better than anybody else's here. But I've got the Catamounts. I've got the Catamounts beating Arkansas. If you follow my top 25, that actually makes sense. I was really high on Arkansas for a while simply because they were winning a lot of games and they were beating good teams. The SEC, you could argue, is like 1B. as far as conferences are concerned. I think they're right there with the Big 12. I'd probably give the Big 12 a bit of an edge. I think the Big 10 right now is established as the best top to bottom conference in the country. I know there's 5 teams that finished with below 500 records, but let's remember those 5 teams are part of a conference of 14 teams. The Big 12 with 10, you're going to have more teams that are bad, quote unquote. But I've got Vermont moving on, even though Arkansas had been rolling. The Catamounts have been great all year. And as we go here, I'm going to continue to kind of give you my reasoning as to why I'm making the selections that I'm making. And you're welcome to comment on those, call in. I guess I should probably open up the chat, or excuse me, open up the call line and take calls as we're going through each region. So the number to call if you're new here is 515-635-1601. 515-635-1601. You look at Vermont, they went on the road and beat Northern Iowa early, which is impressive by itself. Obviously, Northern Iowa, a very respected program. People here in Iowa recognize that. They won the Missouri Valley Conference this year. Vermont also played Maryland close. That was when Maryland was actually a top 25 team. Terrapins falling off, and then Turgeon left. That was before Turgeon left, interestingly enough. So I've got Vermont partially because of the fact that they opened the season strong against two really, again, Maryland didn't light the world on fire this year, but that's a Power 5 opponent that beat some people, despite the fact that they had a rough season after Turgeon left. Vermont also beat Yale, who's another tournament team. Now, I don't believe Yale's going to make any noise. We'll get to them in a little bit. They play Purdue, but Vermont did beat them, and they are a tournament team. They lost to UNC Greensboro, lost to Providence by 10, played Providence tough, beat Colgate, another tournament team, in December. And really, as far as their conference is concerned, you can run through their conference schedule. They basically dominated. Beat UMBC by 39, beat Binghamton by 32, beat New Jersey Institute by 39, beat Maine by 19. And you may say, well, who are those teams? They're dominating, folks. They're dominating. That's what Vermont did all year. That's a scary spot to be if I'm a 4 seed. Another reason why I wouldn't have wanted to be that 4 seed, because if Iowa had been the last 4 seed, they would have been in this region, right? If I'm not mistaken, they would have been in the Gonzaga region as a 4, which means they would have gotten matched up with Vermont most likely. So I'm very happy that they did not get the Catamounts. I've got Vermont moving on and facing Connecticut. Alabama playing the winner of Rutgers Notre Dame. I've got Rutgers or Notre Dame. I think Rutgers wins, but I've been high on the Irish all year, higher than everybody else, I should say. The ACC was not as good as it typically is, but Notre Dame, another example of a team that was sort of steady Eddie throughout the conference season. Alabama is the opposite of steady Eddie. They've been all over the map. They could make a run to the Final Four. They could get beat in the first round. They've been too inconsistent for me to bank on them. I'm going to take the winner of the Rutgers Notre Dame game to move on and play Texas Tech, who gets Montana State in their first round game. And I can move down here a bit. I've got Texas Tech moving on. I like the Red Raiders. Michigan State, Davidson. I know the storylines there. This is a lot of great coaches in this section. Obviously, Izzo and Coach K lead the way. But the Davidson head coach escapes me. He's been in the game forever. I've got Michigan State moving on. I'm not real high on the Spartans, but I think that's a matchup for the most part. I think Michigan State's size, they do have good size, is going to give Davidson problems, and I think they move on. Duke taking on Cal State Fullerton. I don't see any way Cal State makes this a fighting match. There's some really lopsided. There's some good matchups, no question. With 2 15s and even maybe one of the 1-16 matchups could be interesting. But for the most part, the 1 and 2 seeds are going to have it fairly easy. You'll see my picks the rest of the selection here. Maybe not as consistent as you'd think, but for the most part, I like where every 1 and 2 seed where they lie for the most part. Gonzaga taking on Boise State in the second round. I've got the Bulldogs moving on. You've got Vermont moving on from Connecticut, another upset. I'm high in the Catamounts. Connecticut was good basically all year. I don't have a lot of trust in Hurley to win in March. Has he done it? I don't know what his tournament record is. I don't trust him as a head coach. Maybe he's going to prove me wrong. I like the Catamounts because nobody's talking about him. Now, they'll be talking about them after they beat Arkansas, but a quick turnaround. I don't think Connecticut will have really been tested in that first round versus New Mexico State. The Catamounts move on and will face Gonzaga. Moving down here, the winner of Rutgers-Notre Dame, I believe it will be Rutgers, but possibly could be Notre Dame, taking on the Red Raiders. I think Texas Tech wins that game. Talk about balance. Texas Tech is a balanced team. Very good defensive team. Kind of the polar opposite of what Alabama is. And I think just too much offense for a very good defensive Rutgers team. That is a good defensive team. I think the Red Raiders move on. You got the Coach K versus Tom Izzo matchup, Michigan State versus Duke. I know everybody's going to be talking about it. I like Duke to move on. I don't think this is a magical year for Duke, in March, but I do believe that they've got enough to overpower what is an under-talented Michigan State team, a Michigan State team with some size, but I think Duke can match it, and they take care of business and move on, which means Gonzaga and Vermont in my Sweet 16. I think Vermont's Cinderella story ends here. The Bulldogs, from top to bottom, the most talented team in the bracket, in my humble opinion. I think they are the best team in college basketball. I get the criticism about them being in the West Coast Conference, but I think they just give too much. And Vermont have just beaten the 4 and the 5. I don't think that continues. If Vermont makes the Elite the Elite 8, I will be shocked, but not totally shocked, because I do believe they'll win their first 2 games. Texas Tech and Duke. This is another upset. Maybe I know Texas Tech has been a trendy pick with some. I like the Red Raiders. They've been here before. They know how to win in the tournament. Having been to the national championship game a couple of years ago, I think this is when Coach K bows out. I think this is he bows out in the Sweet 16. By the way, the Michigan State Duke, that is sort of a revenge game for Duke, because you'll recall the big upset with Zion Williamson several years back. Tom Izzo's team getting to the Final Four, beating Duke. But I've got Texas Tech moving on from Duke, making I think it's going to be a very entertaining Texas Tech Gonzaga game. I do have Gonzaga coming out on top in the West region, but that will be a fun one if it happens. So that's my West region. I've got Gonzaga coming out of the West as the 1 seed. No big surprise there, but I've got the Bulldogs moving on to the Final Four. All right. We'll kind of decompress before I move on to the next region. Again, my phone line is open here, folks. 515-635-1601. Let's keep most of the conversation to what we just talked about. I promise we're going to get to Iowa. Stay tuned. We're going to get to the Hawks and the rest of the Big Ten. But let's just kind of react. What do you think about the West region? Do you agree? Do you disagree with some of my picks? Will Gonzaga be upset before the Final Four? That's certainly, you have the right to your opinion. Please let me know. Brian says it was enlightening to see that our toughest dudes, Tony P and Joe T, got the most emotional after the game. And Kurt says that Joe Lenardi has Iowa losing in the second round to SDSU. Very interesting. Again, I'll give my thoughts on that potential matchup in the second round. Let's get our first caller here. Thank you for calling from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
Hello, Corey. It's the real MVP. How you doing?
Doing great, sir. How are you on this Monday?
I'm doing great. It sounded like you were wanting a call, so I thought I'd give you a call.
Sure. Appreciate you calling. What do you think of my West?
It's completely different than my West.
Okay. Share your thoughts on it. I have no problem with a different opinion.
Well, if you could put it up on screen for everybody, that would be because it's kind of hard to go through 2 different brackets by voicing in a conversation, I've learned.
Okay, well, how am I supposed to get you? I mean, I don't have your bracket here, man. I mean,
no. Just screen share yours and I'll tell you the difference.
Oh, yeah, I got mine up there right now.
Okay. So first off, I would like to highlight Vermont, the Anteaters. Their conference, the Vermont.
Okay.
Their conference is just so bad.
Yeah, but they're dominating. They're dominating it.
Yeah.
Very similar to what Gonzaga does in their conference. Very, very unlike what Houston does in its conference.
No. The West Coast Conference is decent.
It's better. It's American East. It's not great.
The American East is so bad. Their second seed, UMBC, lost in a neutral site game to Georgetown.
Okay. Georgetown's Power 5, Power 6. They're Big East.
Have you seen their record this year?
They're Big East. Drill MVP.
Yeah, they're trash.
We're talking about two different levels of basketball. You're comparing FCS to FBS, basically. Georgetown is still...
Yeah.
You're telling me you think Georgetown doesn't have the athletes to beat UMBC convincingly? They should.
They didn't. I mean, they did, but I mean, that was horrible.
Well, I'm not banking on UMBC. I'm banking on Vermont.
Well, Vermont's gonna... I have them winning one game, but I think I'm going to change that. I think Arkansas is going to beat
So you've got them beating Arkansas. What are you giving me a hard time? You got them beating Arkansas. What are we arguing about?
I just think the talent level between Arkansas and Vermont is going to be so big. I'm going to change. Listen, this bracket was just an initial impression. I'm going to change something.
Okay, you should go ahead and change it. What do you think? What do you think about the rest of the region?
Michigan State's going to lose to Davidson. This is a bad matchup for Michigan State. Michigan State just turns the ball over too much, and Davidson can shoot the three. So I just like Davidson.
Okay, I'm fine with that. I don't think they have. I don't think Davidson has the size, but we'll see.
Well, I mean, I don't think they'll need the size will matter when Michigan State has like 15 turnovers, and Davidson will have 18 to 20 points off turnover.
Okay.
Fair
enough.
And then I have Texas Tech in the Final Four, as I said yesterday.
Okay. Well,
and the main question is, where does Gonzaga lose? Well, they lose to Memphis in the second round.
Well, you're a lot higher in Memphis than I am, sir.
Well, the numbers love Memphis. And
they didn't love them that much. They're a 9 seed. They don't love them that much. They're a 9 seed.
Well, the play on the court at the beginning of the year really hurt them. Okay.
Well, didn't that? Yeah, they did. You're right.
If you look at what they've done recently, 13 out of the last 15 games.
Not a great conference. It's not a great conference.
It's not a great conference, but I mean, it's equal to, let's say, the West Coast, the WCC.
It's not a very good conference.
And I mean, Gonzaga's only played 6 road games all year. Chet Holmgren, I've lost faith in him. I mean, he looks bad, horrible, twice against St. Mary's, excuse me. And I think he's going to get absolutely obliterated, dominated. I think he's going to get bullied. And I mean, Memphis has proven they can beat great teams. They crushed Alabama. They crushed Houston twice before. Yes, they did lose to them, but when you play so many games in so many days, you get tired and fatigued from playing up and down all the time. And I think that really hurt Memphis in the finals in the AAC.
Okay.
But I understand why you have Gonzaga, Corey. I'm not going to...
I just think they're the most complete team in the country right now. I'm not going to give away who I have in my championship, but I just think they're the most complete team in the country right now.
I don't blame that, but how many titles has Mark Few won when they've been the 1 seed?
0.
Oh, okay. I'm just making sure. So until that trend changes, I'm not going to believe it.
Fair enough.
So I think that's all I got for you for this region. Do you want me to?
No, that's plenty for now. Let's just wait, and you're welcome to give us a call back and talk about if you disagree with my next region.
Oh yeah, I will do. I'm sure there'll be some things I disagree with, but hey, listen. Hopefully, please do the bracket challenge. Please.
All right, you'll be a part of that.
I definitely will.
All right, we'll do the bracket challenge. Appreciate the call, Drill MVP.
No problem.
All right. Well, what do you think? Welcome to call in. Drill MVP does not agree with me. Although he's not that far off with me, and again, somebody else call in. Somebody else tell me what you think. Am I just going crazy? Is Gonzaga really not that good? Give me a call. That is my West region. Do you agree? Do you disagree? All right. I think it's a pretty strong region with Texas Tech and Gonzaga. Texas Tech may have gotten out of this region if they were in Texas Tech may have gotten to the Final Four in my bracket had they been in a different region, because I really like the Red Raiders. I'm not real high on Duke. And I'm not really high on anybody else in this section. I really am not. But I think that Texas Tech being in a different region, I could see them getting to the Final Four, getting out of their section. Thank you for calling from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
Hi, this is Tommy from Illinois.
Hey, Tommy.
Hi. So what are we talking about here?
We're talking about the West region.
All right.
What you got?
Personally, I think Arizona's the best team in the bracket.
Okay, but what about the West region? I'm not talking about the West teams. What about the West region? You see the bracket I've got up on the screen, right? We haven't gotten to Arizona yet.
Hold on. Yeah, wait, I'm on my phone.
I got you.
Switch. Oh yeah. Okay. All right, I got you. I'm with you.
Do you agree? Disagree? What do you think?
I personally, I agree. A lot of my friends are picking New Mexico State over Connecticut.
Ooh.
I just don't see it.
I don't either.
Vermont is a great team. I love it.
Yeah, I think Vermont has, again, sold me because of their margin of victory throughout the year. They played good competition, had a couple good wins early. Mentioned UNI being one of those. They beat Yale, who's a tournament team. No, I think they're dangerous, and I think I've not heard a whole lot of trendy Vermont pickers. Maybe I'm just not hearing them, but I think Vermont is in a good position to make a run.
Right, and you always see those high seeds show up in the round of 32, even the Sweet 16. But I'm just personally excited to see Michigan State versus Duke. I mean, that's just going to be a great game.
And I think it's going to happen. I know Drill MVP doesn't agree, but I just don't think Davidson can match up with Michigan State's physicality. I really don't.
I don't either.
And
Michigan State's better coached, and they're just a better team.
And for the record, you're talking about New Mexico State. I'm trying to bring up their standings here and their conference because they play in a really pathetic conference. I hate to say that.
Right.
Right. They're in the WAC, of course. They're 26-6, but if you listen to some of these teams, Drill MVP was bashing Vermont's conference. New Mexico State's playing the likes of Dixie State. Now, Grand Canyon's a good program. Iowa played them last year, but Dixie State, Chicago State's just been a terrible program for years. Utah Valley, I don't even think they've been Division I that long. Stephen F. Austin's good. They just actually lost to Stephen F. Austin back beginning of March. Abilene Christian, Sam Houston State, Tarleton was on the schedule. Lamar was on the schedule. That's just not a very good schedule, 26-6 or not. I don't think there's going to be much of an issue for Connecticut there.
Right. Now, how many games have they lost in their conference? 4 or 5?
In their conference? Good question. Yeah, for some reason, I know they're 26-6 overall.
At least 5 of them, I want to say, they've lost in conference a few times.
Yeah, I want to say they've lost 5 because they lost to Utah State in the non-conference. Lost to Utah State by 27. A Utah State team that's not in the tournament, by the way.
Right.
So, yeah.
There's
I agree.
There's going to be a great playing game.
Say that again.
There's going to be a great playing game between Rutgers and Notre Dame, but ultimately, I think I see Rutgers winning that game.
I think so, yeah. Again, Notre Dame has been – the ACC has been down. Notre Dame's played it well. They've kind of flown under the radar in that conference. But Rutgers actually – let's be honest. They played Iowa tough the other day. They've been playing well. Obviously, they've got some of the best wins in the country, the likes of Purdue and Wisconsin. I really am high in the Big Ten. Yes, I'm biased. I'm an Iowa guy. If you know me, I'm an Iowa guy. But that is going to be a great matchup. I could see that going either way, but I like either one of those teams against Alabama. But Alabama's way too up and down. Yes, they could win, but this is a type of game I see them faltering in. If they were playing Duke in the first round, I could see them winning. I feel like they kind of get up for the big games and don't get up for the not big games, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I see that too. And the thing is with the playing games, you just build that momentum. Like you get that first game under your system and then you go into the tournament. So it's a slight advantage once you win that game.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you'll see, I would love to watch Texas Tech versus Duke. And I just think that I think that Texas Tech could really blow them out with that defense. I just think
that, yeah. Well, let's
they have
remember
a great
part of the reason why I'm high on Texas Tech against Duke. What you just said, you remember, and I know it's different. Tony Bennett runs a different defense, but they're very much in your face. They're going to play you physical. Virginia beating Duke on the road and played Duke close at home as well. I know they lost that game, but Virginia gave Duke problems, and Virginia is not a tournament team. Very much of a down year for Tony Bennett's squad. So no, I agree with you. I think Texas Tech wins that game handily, and that's scary to say for Coach K's potentially his final game of his career. I think Texas Tech wins that game handily.
Right. I mean, in Gonzaga against Texas Tech is going to be a close game. It has to be, but I just think Gonzaga is going to overpower them offensively. I think that they could do some damage.
So you have you have Vermont beating Arkansas?
I do.
So are our brackets at all different in this region?
They are a little different. I have wait, let me see. I have UConn beating Vermont.
Okay. Yeah, so a bit different there. You've got Boise State over Memphis.
Yeah, I think that Boise State's going to handle them.
Okay. Yeah, no, we are close.
Yeah, very close. I mean, Memphis has played some good teams, I'm saying. But
yeah, they had a good. They played some good teams early out of the conference, but didn't really win any. You got beat by I believe Xavier, Iowa State. Did Xavier beat him? I know Iowa State beat him, and that was when Iowa State was actually playing good ball. But Memphis was hovering around 500 for a good portion of the season until they got to their conference play. And I know they dropped some early, but that conference is just not that good. So I'm not high in Houston. You're going to see my bracket with Houston. I am not high in the Cougars. Now maybe Kelvin Sampson and that team surprises me, but I just was not impressed with Houston all year long.
No, I mean, they're just not the same from last year. Something seems off with the chemistry. But I mean, yeah, but that's it for that quadrant.
All right, man. Appreciate the phone call. Call us anytime.
Yeah, no problem. See ya.
Appreciate the interaction this evening, and our call line is open. I want to move on, though, to the next region because I know we're going a little bit slower than people anticipated. I'm happy comparing brackets, discussing differences in our brackets. But with that being said, let's move on to, we're going to hop over to the South. Let's talk about the South because I know our caller brought up Arizona. Let me just share my screen here, and we can talk the South region. Okay. So, of course, Arizona, the 1 seed in the region, the Wildcats, kind of a trendy pick by a lot of people. I even heard some speculation, was it on BTN this morning, that perhaps Arizona should have been the overall number 1. I don't agree with that. If you want to knock Gonzaga's conference, let's knock the Pac-12. The Pac-12 ain't that good. I think USC is overrated. I think UCLA and Arizona have a chance to make a run. But after that, I'm not real high on the conference. Arizona over Wright State or Bryant, which is one of those early games in Dayton. I do have, as you see here, TCU over Seton Hall. And I know you're going to see here, whoa, you have TCU over Arizona. Let me explain in a moment. UAB, the 12th-seeded Blazers. I've got Alabama, Birmingham beating Houston. That's going to upset Darrell MVP and some other people who are Houston fans, and that's fine. But you know how I feel about that conference. The AC is just not that good. Houston did not dominate. They also lost some games to inferior competition, or what we perceive to be inferior competition. They played teams close they shouldn't have. That all goes into my top 25 for one thing, and it goes into how I perceive your team heading into a tournament in which, UAB. I can pull up UAB's schedule here and get you an idea as to why I believe they have the firepower to pull off what will be a big upset on the board, but I don't really think in reality it's that big of an upset. UAB beat a good Morehead State team, and you might laugh and say, Morehead State, who the heck is Morehead State? Morehead State was 23-11, played in the Ohio Valley, which is a good conference. Yes, I know, good relative to the rest of the mid-majors, but the Ohio Valley features Murray State, Belmont, That's a decent conference, especially at the top. It's actually a really good conference at the top. But Morehead State is part of that, the only other 20-win team besides Belmont and Murray State in that quadrant, or excuse me, in that conference. So a good win there for UAB early, won by double figures. Played South Carolina, really, really tough, 66-63. That game was played in Columbia early in the year. Played San Francisco, really, that might be the most impressive one, on a neutral floor. Played San Francisco real close. In fact, the final score was 63-61. Colorado State, UAB was not able to get off a shot, but they had a chance to win the game on a deep three and didn't get a shot off in time. And so, but again, played them close in I believe that was the Las Vegas tournament. Just had a decent schedule. Played West Virginia real close. Lost to West Virginia by 6. Again, not a great conference. North Texas won a lot of games this year in Conference USA. They went 24-6, but UAB went far behind them, folks. 27-7. They get in as an automatic qualifier. So I think UAB has what it takes to beat Houston. Illinois over Chattanooga. I've been back and forth on Chattanooga because I think they're a dangerous mid-major, but I think they kind of drew the short straw here because they just don't match up with it. It's going to be hard for teams to match up with Kofi Cockburn. Now, Loyola found a way to do that last year. I think Illinois is going to be a problem, and you see them advancing in my draw because of mismatches, specifically with Kofi Cockburn. And if they get good play from their bigs, such as Omar Payne, it's going to be hard. Hawkins is another guy who's been playing better basketball. I've got them beating Chattanooga. Michigan over Colorado State. I went back and forth on Colorado State. They've been kind of weird. Again, don't love the Mountain West like other people do. I think Michigan wins the game, but that's it. I think they'll get beat by Tennessee, who will beat Longwood in the first round. I'll be intrigued to see what Longwood does. I watched that Iowa-Longwood game back in November, was not real impressed with what I saw, but Longwood won their Big South Conference, which is not a great conference. Won it outright, won the conference tournament, but I think the Volunteers, they're way too hot right now. They win. Ohio State, Loyola, Chicago, the Ramblers are playing well, not winning the regular season NBC title, but winning against two really good teams, beat Drake and UNI back-to-back to win that conference tournament. Ohio State is imploding right now. Lost several games at home to end the season, including a game against Nebraska. They also lost to Penn State in the conference tournament. I still think I would not be surprised to see Ohio State win this game. I will be rooting for Ohio State, for the record. As a fan, I'll be rooting for Ohio State, but my head tells me Loyola wins this game and they advance to play Villanova, who will beat Delaware in that first round, who I'm not. I think that's another one of those lopsided 2-15 games, in my opinion, which brings us to the second round. And yes, I've got Arizona falling to TCU, the Horned Frogs. I'm going to pull up TCU's schedule here. I know they beat Kansas late in the year, played Kansas tough in another game. So beat them by 10 back on the first, played them to a 4-point deficit on the third 2 days later. That is so hard to do against remember, Kansas is a number 1 seed, and TCU pushed them. Now, they lost to West Virginia 2 days later. I can't help but think that loss to the Mountaineers was a bit of a letdown following 2 really taxing games against the Jayhawks. But what did TCU do? 5 days later, they come back, beat Texas in the Big 12 championship, played Kansas tough, but fell in the Big 12 championship in the semifinals. TCU is playing really good basketball right now. They have a win over Texas Tech. I mean, they really didn't get they didn't really get housed by anybody this year. Baylor beat them a couple times by 10-12. They have a loss. They beat Iowa State on the road. They do have a lopsided loss to Texas, but I mean, I think that's about it. You go back to their non-conference schedule. They beat Utah. They beat Texas A&M, who probably should have been in the field of 68. I don't know what there's not to like about TCU. They did drop a game by quite a bit to Santa Clara, who's a respectable WCC program. But I like TCU's. I really like TCU. I've been waiting for Marshall to be able to do something in that conference for a while, and I think he's going to get it done here. Now, before we get to our next call, I've got Illinois beating UAB. Again, I think UAB beats Houston, but too much firepower, specifically size from the Illini. As you see, I've got Tennessee over Michigan. Tennessee playing great basketball, winning the SEC title. And then you see TCU, Illinois. I think TCU is going to have its hands full. Again, size. I think Kofi Cockburn, I have faith this year that he's been around long enough, and we're seeing him really using his size. I thought last year, even in those games against Iowa, now he came out in the Big Ten tournament against Garza and played really well. But to me, he looked terrible against Loyola last year in the tournament. And that's an undersized Ramblers team. I think I have to give Brad Underwood and Kofi Cockburn the benefit of the doubt that they learned from that and they'll utilize him. And Trent Frazier's playing great ball right now. They beat TCU, and they'll face Tennessee, who will upset Villanova, but really not much of an upset. Those two teams, I could go either way. And again, a situation where Villanova was in a different draw, I could see them going to the Elite Eight. But I think right now, Tennessee, the Volunteers, they're kind of a buzzsaw. They will play Illinois for a spot in the Final Four, and I think the Volunteers get out of this section and advance out of the South. All right, let's get to our next call here. Thank you for calling from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line? Hello. You're on the air.
Hello?
Yes, you're on the air.
This is Anthony.
Who is this?
Can you hear me? Anthony.
You're cutting out pretty good. Can you say it one more time, sir?
Yeah, sorry, this is Anthony. Can you hear me?
Hi, Anthony. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I love talking brackets. I can tell you that.
Yeah. First off, I want to just thank you for doing that show with all the Dr. Tom guys last night. I think your show is really cool because you're connecting some of that old history that hasn't always been highlighted in the past. So first off, thank you for that. That TCU prediction, it's bold, but I saw them play at Kansas this year, and that's a place where it's loud. You're not going to get any calls, and they're a tough team. I could see them winning. The Illinois pick, I like it, but I think Jordan Bohannon pointed this out. It's a team that fouls a lot and gets away with it. They're not going to have Big Ten referees, so
True.
So who knows? I mean, I could see them getting to where you have them, but I could also see them getting tripped up. But I have to say, bold predicts, but I do like them.
Appreciate it, man. Yeah, you who do you have coming out of the South?
Tennessee. I saw them play yesterday. SEC. That's a really talented conference. I think there's a lot of momentum. Another thing I wanted to ask you is how much does winning a tournament go towards momentum? Do you think there's anything with that, versus a team having to just turn it on after not playing for a week or so?
That's a good question. I don't have the data to support it. I can tell you this. I would rather win the tournament than lose early. To me, there's no question. I would rather win than have extra rest. I saw Brad Underwood of Illinois kind of play it off when they lost early, basically saying, we can focus on what we play for. I mean, if you're not playing for a conference championship, then, I don't get that at all. To me, winning the Big Ten tournament or winning the Big 12 tournament is a massive accomplishment. And I do think it gives you, if I'm Iowa right now, I'm feeling great. Yeah, you're probably fatigued a bit. You wish that you played Friday instead of Thursday, but let's remember Richmond played on Sunday as well, so they'll get the same amount of rest. Again, I don't have the data to support it, but you always want to win and have momentum heading into the NCAA tournament. So yeah, I really would like to hash out the numbers, and perhaps I'll do that this week.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And thanks for taking my call. One last thing I'll say before it goes: Wisconsin, Colgate. Colgate's a good team. Johnny Davis doesn't look 100%. We'll see. We'll see about that game. I can see Wisconsin making an early exit this year.
Very true. Yeah, they need Johnny Davis to fight whatever demons he's dealing with. It's a health problem or a mental thing. He did not look good in the Big Ten tournament. I do think Colgate is, first of all, that's a program that's been here before. They played Tennessee tough a couple of years ago. I agree. I'll give you a sneak preview. I do think when Wisconsin wins that game, and they got a favorable draw, which helps. But Johnny Davis's health is the biggest storyline for the Badgers. That's obvious. That's like stating like the biggest piece of obvious news that you've heard all day. If they can get him healthy, and that's a big if. It looks like right now. I mean, went 3 of 19 the other night. But if he's healthy, he can lead them because star power typically pays big dividends in this tournament. But if he's out, that team ain't nothing. I mean, I hate to say that, but they really are not. Now they do play defense, but their ceiling is a lot lower if he's even 80 to 90% healthy as opposed to 100%. Because let's remember, throughout the year, they were winning close games with him at 100%. So what does that tell you about him at anything less than 100%? We saw it against Nebraska. We saw it against Michigan State in the tournament.
I agree. You know, he's no kid. I'll just say that.
Agreed.
All right, have a good night.
Appreciate it, sir. Thanks for the call. And yeah, all good points. We'll get to Wisconsin here in a little bit. Our line is back open. Again, trying to keep these calls moving along because I don't want to just hang out on these. You know, this is an Iowa stream. I wanted to share my bracket with everybody. Again, if you missed the outset of this show, if you're just joining us now, I'm looking at getting kind of not a vote, but sort of an idea for if you'd like a pool to be able to add your bracket and compete against me and compete against everybody who listens and all of our people in the chat and people who are callers. Let me know in the chat. It looks like that's something that people want to do, and I can get that put together. And we'll make that an open competition, and we'll see who wins. But again, please give me some feedback so I have an idea of where you stand. Thank you for calling from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line? Hello,
Sam. Hello.
Hello.
Oh, sorry. I'm watching the stream. It's like delayed a little bit. Sorry.
You're good.
I was just wondering if I could see the Midwest region. I want to compare brackets a little because so far your South region is almost identical to mine. I love Tennessee. TCU, great pick. I'm all for it.
Yeah. You've got, I'm assuming you have UAB over Houston?
I do not actually. I think Houston can just absolutely grit and grind UAB and beat them.
Okay.
I really like their defensive aspect.
Well, I'm going to go to the East and then I'll go to the Midwest and we'll
that works. That works too.
Compare those. So, all right, man. Appreciate the call.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. So we want to move along. So let's move on. And I noticed Drill MVP did not get a call in. That's okay, Drill. We can discuss this. Save your call for, I know we've already called one. Save your call for when we kind of recap everything. Let's get to the third region. My third region, I should say. And that is, of course, the East. The East region. Starting with Baylor. The Baylor Bears, who I've been high on all year. I know they had some losses during the season. I believe a couple of them were at home. They are going to well overmatch Norfolk State. Baylor, of course, national champions, reigning national champions. They will take care of business there. North Carolina Marquette. This is one of my tougher decisions, folks. I ended up going with Carolina. They've won a lot of games late, albeit against a pretty poor top to bottom. The ACC is just not great. Have a good win against Duke, dominant win against Duke on a big stage. I think they win. I think they beat Marquette. Golden Eagles have not been bad either. Another team that nobody's talking about out of the Big East. Wyoming. Who is the 5 seed here? Who the heck is Mary CA? What am I? Am I losing my mind here? Who the heck is Mary CA? Somebody tell me who Mary CA is. Drill MVP, I did not make this bracket just to upset you, I promise. St. Mary's. Okay, St. Mary's, that's who it is. Thank you, Drill MVP. I'm just like, who the heck is Mary CA? Yeah, St. Mary's I've got losing, actually. So this is probably not going to make many people very happy. I've got Wyoming or Indiana winning. I think Indiana wins that game. I'm not real confident. If Wyoming beats Indiana, which they very well could, I see them losing to St. Mary's, but I'm banking on Indiana winning. I would not be shocked if Wyoming got to the second round. Indiana does have sort of a short turnaround. Everybody's talking about Iowa's turnaround. How about Indiana's turnaround? Having to play on Saturday and then come back, and Indiana, don't they play tomorrow? I mean, that's a quick turnaround, folks. Now that means they played the same amount of games as Iowa heading, so 3 games in 3 days. Let me just confirm that, but I think that's correct. They will play against Wyoming tomorrow, the 15th, at 8:10 p.m. in Dayton. So, and not a long trek for the Hoosiers, but yeah, I think Indiana wins. I think they beat St. Mary's and upset the Gales. UCLA over Akron. The Zips, the Mack's not very good. I think the Bruins win. Texas versus Virginia Tech. I went back and forth on this one as well. Virginia Tech, the hot commodity right now, out of the ACC, winning the conference tournament kind of out of nowhere. And this is going to sound like reverse logic, but that kind of makes me that's kind of why I've got Texas winning, because that's a more talented team. They weren't playing great at the end of the year, but it's a more talented team, and I know Virginia Tech is the hot pick here. I think Texas says, look, we're putting an end to this, and they win against a Virginia Tech team that is probably not going to be able to match up talent-wise with the Longhorns whatsoever. I think Texas gets out of there. And then, of course, Purdue, I see them dominating another overmatched Yale team out of the Ivy League. Murray State, this is going to make some people upset. I know that. Murray State, I got losing to San Francisco. San Francisco, I mean, I'm not a big West Coast Conference guy. They got a good resume, man. I mean, like, there's anybody in the West Coast, I'm higher on San Francisco than I am St. Mary's. I mean, let's take a look at San Francisco's resume here, because the Dons, I love that name, the Dons, have some really good wins. Going back to November, they beat Davidson, who's a tournament team. Mentioned UAB, that win over the Blazers, who were in the tournament. They beat a UNLV team that beat, I believe, Colorado State twice. They blew them out by 21. They beat Arizona State on the road. That is a good team. Did lose to Loyola Chicago, another good team. Played Gonzaga tough back in January. Lost by 2 at home to St. Mary's. Had a game actually postponed against St. Mary's. It was made up later. Lost another game to St. Mary's by 5. Actually played Gonzaga twice, tough twice. I like the Dons, and I'm not high on Murray State simply because the OVC is good, and I think Murray State would beat a lot of teams. But we're talking about a San Francisco team that's been tested more, that's played the likes of St. Mary's and Gonzaga. The toughest team that Murray State, and I can pull up their schedule as well. Obviously, Belmont is a perennial, I want to call them a power, but they're certainly a team that makes noise on a night in, night out basis, year in, year out basis. Murray State's got a win over Moorhead, which is a good win. They got a win over Memphis, but Memphis was not playing well. They do have a win over Chattanooga. Give them credit there. They played Auburn fairly tough back in December. But after that, like, who have they beaten? They beat Belmont on the road. But the conference, I mentioned the OVC being good. It's good at the top. It's not good throughout the conference. It's just not a great conference once you get past those top 3. And again, I think San Francisco plays the disrespect card because they played the tougher schedule. And I think, Murray State's just a hot pick. I think they win. Kentucky over St. Peter's. That's a no-brainer. Back up to the top here. I've got Baylor beating North Carolina. Huber Davis and company overmatched against a physical Baylor team that's been there, done that in this tournament. They win in advance. I've got UCLA beating either Wyoming or Indiana. I think it'll be Indiana. I think Indiana could very well run out of gas. Very well could run out of the gas. That means they'll play 3 games from Thursday, Friday, Saturday of this past week, and then Tuesday, Thursday and then they'll have to play again Sunday. I think they're going to run out of gas. And that UCLA team, if there's anybody in the Pac-12 that impresses you, it's either Arizona or UCLA. I think they run out of gas. Another team in UCLA that knows how to win in this tournament. I think Mick Cronin and company move on. I've got Purdue beating Texas. Going back to that Texas-Virginia Tech game, I think the disrespect card will help Texas round one. But I think Purdue proved on Sunday they can play decent defense. They didn't play great against Iowa defensively, but they don't need to. They're like Iowa in that they've got an electric enough offense. They're athletic enough. They rebound the ball well. They've got size. It's going to be hard. I mean, talk about mismatches. We mentioned Kofi Coburn earlier. Who's going to match up in these tournaments with the likes of Trevion Williams and Zach Edey? I think Texas is going to struggle in the paint, and I think the Boilermakers move on. San Francisco will lose to Kentucky. I don't believe the Dons have the firepower to get it done. I think Baylor beats UCLA and gets to the East Championship, if you will, against Purdue, who will knock off Kentucky. Sorry, Drill MVP. I've been high on Purdue all year. It's nothing against Kentucky, but I also acknowledge if Purdue doesn't play defense and they haven't much of the year, that they can lose. Now, I ain't going to lose to Yale, but they could lose to just about anybody else in their section here. All right. Kentucky will give them problems if Purdue doesn't come ready to go. I just would have to think, with all of Purdue's talent, with all of Purdue's size, with all their athleticism, they've got some three-point shooters. You know, Stefanovic did not play well Sunday, but he's a seasoned guy. He's done it in the tournament. I think Purdue gets out of this section, gets out of this region. They upset Baylor and move on to the Final Four. That's probably, I don't know, my most out there pick of anybody. Because, again, Purdue has just not played defense the majority of the year. I think they find a way to get it done, though, in a somewhat favorable region. Kentucky's a tough matchup, but I don't think the Texas-Virginia Tech factor is that big of a deal. I don't like their first-round opponent in Yale. I think Purdue gets out of that region and takes care of the East. All right, before we get to our final region, I want to go back into these comments and get caught up, because I'm sure people are either in agreement or ripping. Let's see. Get back up to the top. Eric says, my son filled out a bracket today. Didn't even have his beloved Hawks in the Final Four. Has him getting beat by Kansas. So at least it's a 1 seed, but I'm going to say he's just wrong. That's fine. Call him out. He's wrong. Tell him he's wrong. Tell your son he's wrong. Just do it in a nice way. Anthony brings up that Memphis did get waxed by Houston a couple days ago. So you can go back and forth. Does that mean Houston's good or Memphis is bad? I don't think it really means either. I just think both of those teams are playing in a conference that's just not that great, and I think both are going to get exposed in this tournament. They both lose in the first round. My prediction there, I think they'll both lose. Top to bottom, Jordan. You want me to pull up? Let's pull up Davidson's. Roster and their stats. So you got to remember, between Omar Payne, and I know he doesn't play a ton, but Hawkins and DeMonte Williams plays bigger than he is. Kofi Coburn's obviously a mismatch. You look at Davidson. Foster Lawyer is their point guard, who you recall him from Michigan State. So Illinois knows how they're familiar with him. He was not very good. I mean, I'm not trying to be mean to the kid, but he looked a bit like John Licklider. He looked like Lil Lick. And I know we have some non-Iowa fans. Just Google Lil Lick. He looked like Lil Lick at Michigan State. All right. Davidson's biggest guy who actually plays, let me pull up here, Luka Brakovic. He's 6'10", out of Austria. Not a real big guy, pretty thin. I mean, you know, he's got some height. I'm talking mainly just like girth, right? Physicality. Michigan State, Sam Meninga plays. He's 6'9", a kid out of New Zealand. And then Nelson Bochi, is it Yadam? I don't know how to pronounce his last name. He's 6'8" out of London. They got a lot of foreign players, but very, very, I don't want to call them petite, but these guys are not going to be able to, I just don't think they're going to be able to bang with Michigan State's physicality, because every time, it doesn't matter how talented they are, Michigan State teams are physical, they're big, again, I just think they're going to present too much in that respect. But they've got a good coach. They've been here before. Aiden makes a good point. There's no way to predict March Madness. We're all taking shots in the dark. I'd like to think that I've got some form of knowledge. Maybe it's not great knowledge, but trying to think how well I've done in these bracket challenges in the past. I've done pretty well in Bowl Mania challenges. Brackets are so tough. You're absolutely right. That's why ESPN offers like $1 million to get a perfect bracket, which probably never happens. I'm sure it's happened before. Let me get down the chat here. Eric says, I have a feeling Gonzaga will not get real for this year. Gonzaga will not get real for this year. Okay. Appreciate this, Gene, or G. Assuming your name is pronounced Gene. Thank you for being here. JS, talking about Iowa. He says, an IU fan here. I definitely think you're a Final Four team. Believe we could make a good run. I think Indiana could make a good run. There's no question about it. Interesting. BJ says that New Mexico State head coach played high school ball in Iowa. Very interesting. I was not aware of that. Eric says, if Iowa gets to the Final Four, who matches up good with them? Who should we be most scared of to play at that point? Iowa's even figuring out how to play against bigs right now. I've got the Midwest region, as you know, Eric, but I do think that Iowa would not match up very well with Arizona or Gonzaga. That's kind of, those are your two big boys anyways. I would like to think, given where Iowa's at, if it's Auburn, I give them a chance. I give them a chance because Auburn, first of all, Auburn presents mismatches, but Auburn has played a lot of close games, very similar to the Cougars of Houston, except Auburn plays in a good conference. That's the difference in those two teams. Both teams have good records, difference of conference. But I think they can beat Auburn. I'm not saying they will. And you don't even know if I've got them, going to the Elite Eight or Final Four. Now, they technically would have to play Auburn in the Elite Eight. Final Four-wise, I'd probably rather play Tennessee than Gonzaga or Arizona. Tennessee's rolling, but so is Iowa. And I think Iowa fans would love an opportunity to match up with Tennessee again to kind of venge that loss from a couple of years ago. Jordan says he'll be in Portland for the Thursday-Saturday games. Congratulations, Jordan. That should be a fun time. The Expo, or the Moda Center, I believe the Moda Center is where the NCAA tournament is out there. Beautiful facility. We went out there for a concert a couple of years ago, and really nice facility. Don't love Portland, the city. I love Oregon, but the Moda Center is a very nice facility, kind of a big version of Wells Fargo Arena, really, but very nice facility. The Real Hayden says the way Duke looked against Virginia Tech, Michigan State could beat them. Perhaps. I'm not ruling that out. But I just don't think Michigan State in the end has the talent. They have the physicality, I think, to win against Davidson. I don't know that they have the talent that Duke has. I know they don't. They don't have the talent that Duke has. And I think those players will get up to finish Coach K's career on the right note. I think they probably feel pretty bad about losing to North Carolina in their final game at home. What a weird way to lose. What a weird way to finish Coach K's career at Duke. That's an odd loss. But North Carolina's playing well. Don't get me wrong. Let's try to be. I appreciate everybody being here, but I do see some comments in the chat of people kind of being critical. You can be critical of me. You can be critical of people who are calling in, but please don't make it personal. Okay, you can disagree, but look, we are taking shots at the dark. So please just keep it clean and be nice to one another, please. Tony says Michigan is not getting out of the first down. Write it down. Well, we'll see. Colorado State. Might beat them. They're the higher seed. Michigan State's just been weird. I just think the Mountain West is so hard to read, and that's why I'm not nearly as high on them. Thank you, Drill MVP, for waiting until the whole bracket is done. Luke says it's hilarious that I've got TCU over Arizona. I didn't, I really don't think about this before I go live when I share opinions, and they are opinions, right? Everybody has an opportunity to have their own opinions. Ari Gold says TCU taking down Zona. He's in shock. Alex says, "What are you smoking?" I gave you the explanation, did I not, Ari Gold? I gave you the explanation. TCU is rolling right now. I don't know why we think that's so outlandish. Now maybe they'll lose. They could lose to Seton Hall. anything can happen in this tournament. But I think TCU gets it done, and there are going to be upsets in this tournament. You know there will be, and if you think there won't be, you're out of your mind. I think personally there are going to be more upsets this year maybe than ever before, because there's so much balance in college basketball, and that's what makes this tournament great. There's always upsets, but I think this year, maybe more than ever, there will be tons of upsets, and that's a good thing. Yeah, I love people who I love people like this. Like, why are you here? Why do you troll? Like the people who harass and slander people like Jordan Bohannon. I mean, just go like your team. There's no reason for this. And this is the last time I'm going to put your chat up here if you're going to be insulting to any student athlete. It's just completely uncalled for. Appreciate you listening, but that's just uncalled for, and I'm not going to continue to give it the time of day. But again, I don't get the reasoning as to why you come around to troll. I just don't get that. I mean, it looks like you've got a YouTube channel, post, and freedom of speech. You can talk how you want to talk, but I'm not gonna let it here. And that's I'll give that warning. I don't want to have to block anybody or anything like that. I try not to do that. We don't have moderators on here. I kind of have to do that myself. Please be respectful to one another and be respectful to the student athletes, please. Ryan says, opinion on Loyola's luck running out this year. Well, I don't really think their luck is going to run out, Ryan. I don't think they have near the talent. They do have, was it Williamson, their lockdown defender, who's going to be, I think, a pretty good NBA player. They've got talent. They don't have the big man, whose name escapes me, the big guy that looked like he should have been at home playing video games instead of playing basketball. But the dude could ball. I think they beat Ohio State because Ohio State's not playing that well. I was certainly rooting for Drake or you and I to get in over Loyola, but I do not believe that Loyola will get very far, because I think Villanova is just playing really well right now, and it's going to be hard to beat the Wildcats. I think the Volunteers have what it takes to do that, but anyways, okay. Coming down the chat here, has this guy ever seen Arizona play? Bring it on, buddy boy. I'm fine with the criticism. I'm fine with bold picks. I'm not going to come on here and baloney my way through this live stream. I have seen Arizona play this year. I've never been a believer of the Pac-12. I said it earlier in the show. I like Arizona. I like UCLA. After that, it's not a lot of great quality teams out there. I mean, Oregon has been good at times. USC, Mobley. You take Mobley away, that team's just not very good. Again, a lot of those teams, the schedule, from a schedule standpoint, UCLA played a tough schedule early on, but didn't really impress me very much in the non-conference. But I'm more bought into UCLA and Arizona than anyone else. But again, it's all about matchups, folks. It's all about matchups and who's playing well. Okay. Brent says, I'm disappointed that Drake didn't even make the NIT. Is this right? That's a shame. Of course, you and I did. The real Hayden, is there you need a moderator? I'm fine with a moderator. I've said this before. Reach out to me and shoot me an email, send me a DM through Twitter or Facebook, and I'd be happy to moderate. But if the harassment and insults continue, I'm just going to block people, because we don't need it here. And it's inappropriate. Thank you for calling from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
Hi there. This is Keith.
Hey, Keith.
I'm calling from Winnipeg. I'm calling from Canada. I'm a Hawkeye fan. Been a Hawkeye fan for a long, long time, and I just want to say I enjoy your programming. I watch every single episode. Any time that you guys stream, it's football, basketball. I'm there. So just keep up the good work. I'm so excited for this for the coming tournament. I can't believe that we're Big Ten champions. I have no idea how the heck we got this good so fast. I mean, I wasn't thinking that this was going to be a year that we could experience this run. I thought this was going to be a rebuilding year, but somehow we did it, and I'm just excited for the run.
Absolutely, and I appreciate hearing that you're a Canada guy rooting for Iowa. So you got the Big Ten Network up in Canada, I'm assuming.
Yeah, we sure do. Yeah, it's standard cable. As long as you got the sports package, you get the Big Ten. That's
Awesome.
been good. It's been a good way to keep up with. I get all the Iowa games, and CBS. We have CBS, so I got all the Iowa games of the Big Ten semifinal, final game. It's been it's great. It's great, and I also get sometimes, depending on the, especially in the spring and summer, I get Iowa radio. Go figure.
Really?
So
very interesting.
Yeah.
Well,
Iowa and Nebraska comes in like almost better than Fargo, North Dakota, believe it or not.
So do you listen to a lot of Husker talk?
Pardon me?
Do you listen to a lot of Nebraska Husker talk?
No, well, we get that a lot. Actually, when football season comes around, we get up until November. We get Nebraska, the Big Red pregame show, all that stuff. But unfortunately, we don't get the Iowa. It kind of cuts in and out. But I stream it online, so I'm good with that. And I watch you guys, you and the coach talk. So I get enough of Iowa talk. But
yeah.
I haven't been down to Iowa in quite some time because of COVID, unfortunately. But if they win. If they get to the Final Four, I'm definitely going to head down across the border. I'm going to go to to New Orleans, but I haven't been to the stadium. At the stadium, I haven't been to Kinnick. I haven't been to the arena since 2019. So it's been 3 years. So I'm itching to get back there. I love Iowa. There's actually tons of Iowa fans up here in Manitoba, believe it or not. Like if you drive around when Iowa plays, people put out their banners. We're just down the I-29. We go down and we're in Iowa in half a day. So,
so I got to ask you, Keith, as it relates to Iowa, did you grow up here?
No, I actually would vacation a lot in Minnesota and Iowa, South Dakota. When I was growing up, and Iowa, Minnesota were the two choices I had, and I chose Iowa because I went to a game in 1995, and Kinnick Stadium just blew me away. The tailgating, getting to know the fans, everyone was so friendly. So my family and I, we went back again and again and again, and I've been hooked, and I just love it. And when I got old enough to drive by myself, my friends and I, we went down there. We'd go in the wintertime for the basketball games. So it's and the wrestling, because my brother is a big time wrestler. Wrestling's not too big here in Canada. But Iowa obviously is a big wrestling program, so he and I would drive down there, watch some wrestling. We went down for the championship, not too long ago. So we're Iowa to blood. I mean, I love Iowa. I love just the whole college town experience. I mean, it's a hidden gem, and people always say, "Why are you a Hawkeye fan, man? Why aren't you a Gopher fan?" Or, I'm like, just go to Iowa and experience it. It's just something special about Iowa. People say, Iowa is a boring state. I'm telling you, Iowa is not a boring state. Iowa is a hidden gem of America, heartland. It's like Manitoba, Saskatchewan. We're the heartbeat of Canada, just like Iowa is the heartbeat of America. And I root hard for the sports teams. And I got my Hawkeye banner out in the backyard, proudly raised. And like I said, I can't believe we're Big Ten champions. Like that was totally not expected. And 5th seed will take it. And I think we're going to go all the way to the Elite Eight. That's all I'll say.
Well, you're going to find out where I have Iowa here in a minute. But again, Keith, I appreciate you calling in, and it always makes me happy to know that there are people listening, even in other countries. I know we had someone reach out from Africa a while back. That makes me feel like we're doing some good, be able to connect people who maybe aren't in the area and can't listen to AM radio and get the local television shows. So I appreciate you calling in and listening, Keith.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, just keep up. You do a phenomenal job. Watch you all the time.
Appreciate it. Have a great night, and thanks for listening.
You too.
Appreciate that call from Keith. That's awesome. Always enjoy hearing the positive people. Christopher, you have a right to your opinion. Says that Arizona, there's no way they're losing to TCU. I have no problem with you have right to your opinion, just like I do as well. Eric says Keegan is deceptively fast. He's got so much length, he sometimes looks like he's in slow motion, but some of those fast breaks against fast guards, do I dare say Jordan-esque comparisons? Well, you dare. You dare. Dear MVP, I think Corey made this bracket just to upset me. Just to upset me. Yes, I figured that out, Dubby. St. Mary's CA. I get it, but it was Mary CA, and I just was... Again, that didn't look that way when I actually made the selection, so it threw me off. Eric says, "Does this show up to? This show seems to upset people. Don't you see the comments?" Yeah, I wasn't paying attention to the comments. Again, when you have people from different fan bases who take exception to, opinions, that's fine. You have a right to everybody's opinion. I have no problem with that, and I'm not going to kick people out because they disagree with me. I don't want to ban anybody, but I'm not going to deal with harassment and again, and insults at people within the chat or people who like student athletes. I think it's just completely unacceptable. But again, appreciate everybody for being here. Okay, we are going to continue here in the chat, and then we'll get back to the Midwest region. Orbit's Wolverine, Arizona is going to win it. Dylan says Baylor doesn't make it past the Sweet 16. That's a bold statement as well, Dylan. Let's get our next caller here. Thank you for calling from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
Corey, this is Luke in Orlando. Love the show.
Luke in Orlando. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. I am feeling incredible after the Hawkeyes winning the Big Ten title championship against Purdue. I mean, it was just an amazing run.
Are you down off the high?
I've been actually watching highlights all day, just to keep recapping it.
Yeah.
It was just amazing run here, and I like our chances to get to the Sweet 16 and maybe a little deeper. I think you've been getting a lot of criticism, but I think your show is excellent, and I just wanted to let you know that you're doing a great job.
Yeah, I don't know what are people critical of. I'm just trying to figure out what people are critical of. Can you explain
I don't
it to
know.
me?
People are not liking your picks here, and I don't know. Earlier they were saying you're negative. I think you're pretty positive. But
earlier today, people were saying that.
Yeah, they've been tough on you. I mean, I don't know. You haven't, but obviously two did. I think they're negative on you. Well, I think you're doing great.
What's funny? Here's what's funny about that. People want to knock me for being, I'm negative about Iowa and I'm critical of Iowa. Well, that's fine. I'm going to be as I'm going to call it like I see it. For the record, you know this if you watch my show, sir. I filled out my Big Ten tournament bracket on Wednesday before any games were played. And I had Iowa in the championship game versus Purdue. Okay. So anybody who wants to say I'm overly negative on Iowa, I don't get that. I have been, I think, fairly critical at times. Perhaps I'm a little bit more outspoken about it, my feelings on the situation than, say, a Gary Close is. But I have no problem admitting I'm wrong. And I hope whenever I predicted Iowa was going to lose a game, I hope I'm wrong because I'm an Iowa guy at heart.
I agree 100%. I mean, you've been amazing with it. And you got them to the championship and they won. I mean,
I'll take the credit. I'll take that credit, even though I don't deserve it.
Well, I mean, I would have bet $1 million they would have lost to Purdue. They played a phenomenal game and won.
Yeah. And I had, for the record, I had Purdue beating Iowa, but I was 11-1 up until that point in my my bracket picks. So, not saying that's going to translate to the NCAA tournament. It's a totally different. It's when you're mixing in conferences, it's much more difficult to predict. But I was more excited. I was just as excited as everybody else yesterday. I can't even explain it. It was just a great day.
I don't know. After we beat Purdue, you get Kent McCausland, Jared Koch, Gary Close on the show. That's good TV. I mean, I love it.
Well, I do too, man. It's just as fun for me as it is for you and other people who are Hawkeye fans, man. It's a great, and I give Gary Close a lot. I keep saying that. I give him a lot of credit because he's the connection and he does a tremendous job. And I think he enjoys doing the show. And if you don't enjoy doing it, you're not going to do a good job. And he does a tremendous job.
Yeah, I just can't wait to get to Chicago over the Sweet 16, and we're going to party like it's 1999.
Let's do it, man. I'm looking forward to it.
All right, go Hawkeyes. Thanks
Appreciate
for your
it,
work.
sir. Go Hawks. Have a great night. Appreciate the call from Orlando. Appreciate the call from Orlando. And thank you, Riva Monsta. Girth is just as important as length. Very true. Very true. Eric says, what are Kansas' strengths this year? Well, Agbaji is tremendous. I think Iowa, if they play Kansas, will have problems matching up with McCormick. Iowa's going to have problems against big men all. They've had problems with big men all year. I thought they played Kofi Coburn pretty well in the first half of the first meeting, and maybe Iowa will go back and watch what they did. If Ogundele and Mulvey, saw those guys play yesterday in the Big Ten championship game. If those guys can at least play, 4 to 5 minutes in a game, that gives Rebraca and Chris Murray a break. And it's just different types of athletes you're throwing at a guy like McCormick. And McCormick's not Kofi Coburn or even Zach Edey, but McCormick is a very skilled big man. Thomas, I do believe Iowa can beat Kansas. Will they? That's yet to be seen. I'll share my predictions here in a little bit. Eric says, who has the best bigs that could give Iowa problems in the later round? Certainly Kentucky. If Iowa were to match up in the Final Four with I'm trying to think. Purdue is on the opposite side. Illinois is on that side. Big Ten. I mean, if you just scroll through the draw, like a lot of these talented big guys are in the Big Ten. We're talking Hunter Dickinson at Michigan, Kofi Coburn at Illinois. I've mentioned McCormick at Kansas. I don't know. Maybe somebody can help me out on this. Who has big men on that side of the draw that really scare you? And I'm talking, everybody's got a big guy. And most are going to be bigger than Philip Rebraca. But Rebraca has been playing up against some of the best big men in the country all year. And Alex, does Purdue's defense suck? Well, it hasn't been great. I thought it was okay yesterday. I definitely don't think it sucked yesterday, but it needs to be better for them to make a Final Four, and I think it will be. I think it will be. George, are you setting up a bracket challenge for Hawkeyes of the Storm? Well, from the Hawkeye of the Storm. I'll let you know what the name of that is tomorrow, George. We've got our live show with Mark Rogers, and then 9 o'clock Central Time of a live show. I believe we have Frank Henderson, Tony Perkins' uncle, coming on the show. So stay tuned, and I'll give you details tomorrow. George says he's already gotten tickets to Chicago for the Midwest Regional. Boy, that would be. I hope that was a smart purchase in the end. Either way, you're going to get to see some great games if you decide to go, George. All right. Ryan says, are a round of 64 tickets expensive? Last I knew, are they $254 all session tickets? I want to say that's pretty much everywhere. Now, I don't know, how quickly tickets have gone off the market these last 24 hours. Certainly, that's what they were prior to the tournament selection committee making their final picks. But they're decently reasonable. You get a lot of basketball out of that. Now, the big thing is, like Iowa fans traveling to Buffalo. That's the difficult thing. I mean, tickets, I checked round trip tickets to and from Buffalo, and you're looking at like $700. It's not a cheap ticket. Now, if you're going to Milwaukee, if you're a Wisconsin fan from Madison, that's a dream. And that's why it would have been nice had Iowa been able to be, in that situation where they could have played in Indy or Milwaukee, but that's not to be. Anywhere else, though, it's tough. But Chicago is very intriguing for Iowa fans. All Country Boy, appreciate you being here. It's been a while since I've seen you. Been a great unexpected year. It certainly has. Jordan says $200 for 6 games. Okay. He says, I bought mine back in December. I'm assuming they're cheaper than what I pay now. I assume they're cheaper than what I'd pay now. Yeah, I don't know what they are as of today, but would not be surprised if they are more expensive, especially on StubHub. And it depends on what seats you're sitting in. I get that. That's also a factor. Hayden, I've said before, somebody wants to be a moderator, reach out. Okay, you've got my email. If you need to ask me later, you can do that. I'm not going to share it here, but if you want to find it, you can find it. I'm not hiding the email. AEW Hawkeye. Hawkeye says, is there a deeper team in the country than Iowa? Probably not. I mean, not just purely depth and quality depth. I know there was a metric, was it Sagarin, that came out with the metric that Aaron Eulis is more productive than any other, 9th or 10th guy off the bench in the country. Iowa's depth is going to help them. And I don't think Fran's joking when he says this is the deepest team he's had. Hyperlocal brings up Gonzaga. Not as good as they were last year. He thinks with Joe T, we would have a shot this year. Dylan, is Zach Edey the most productive player in NCAA basketball? Well, he gets into foul trouble, Dylan, at times. We saw that in the second matchup, and maybe in the first matchup. He caused problems yesterday. Iowa had problems rebounding, but they did win. So that's he's skilled. He's skilled for being 7'3", 7'4". Justin says, I think the Hawkeyes will play Arizona in the Final Four. There's no one in the South that matches Arizona's size and speed. Just my opinion. You have every right to that opinion. And on paper, I would agree with you, but this is the NCAA tournament, and crazy things happen. And I think momentum right now with TCU is strong. It is strong with Arizona as well, but there are going to be upsets, folks. And you know there will be. So you can't be dogmatic about these things because we just don't know. Ray Henderson is from Coggin, Iowa. I'm assuming you're talking about the head coach of New Mexico State, Northland High School. I don't know if he was his cousin. They've been riding all year with the Jackrabbits prowess. I don't know who Henderson is, Ray. I'm assuming somebody with the South Dakota State Jackrabbits. And I don't have time to look at that right now, but please explain if you could. But I know there is a player from Marshalltown actually on that South Dakota State roster. Is it Luke Apple? A pretty good player. Transferred from Kirkwood up to the Jackrabbits program. And pretty cool to be able to see him from my hometown, Marshalltown. Dylan says, I love that someone from Canada is supporting this. Great to see this from such a positive community. Awesome. I agree. Thank you, Dylan. And thank you, Keith, for calling in earlier. All right. Sorry, buddy boy. I just blocked you in the chat. You're going to make nasty comments. I warned you. So, again, be respectful here. Just go away. I appreciate everybody being here, but I'm just going to block you. If you're going to insult people, I'm not going to we're not going to have that here. This is a safe place and a respectful place. Quantum Meltology. Thank you for being here as well. Tommy says, Sam Taglia from St. Peter could be the reason we see a 15-2 upset. He also leads the league in technical fouls. I know nothing about Taglia, I'll admit that. So I'll have to check that out. Everybody excited about the Keith call from Canada. That did make me happy. Sean says, heard Taglia sold a big game earlier this week. Not too high on him. Kurt says, could one of Corey's special guests tomorrow Wednesday be Dr. Tom? I'll say this. I'll never rule anything out on, I'd love to get Dr. Tom on this show. Dr. Tom is a very private guy. He doesn't want to take away from the program. Very humble. Doesn't want to be a distraction. Doesn't want to be the center of attention. That's just who he is. So, but I'd love to talk to him. Would love to talk to him. Thank you for this, Eric. I love the joke sometimes, but the guest Corey gets on and the natural banter with them is a treat for small internet broadcasts. Like and subscribe. Thank you, sir. Very much appreciate that. Ray says it was Tom Arnold on the phone. Kind of sounded like Tom, I guess. Maybe. Owen says UAB to the Final Four. I wouldn't be shocked if they make a run. Final Four is a bit eager, a bit far, but I like the Blazers to get out of the first round. Durrell MVP, love Coach Close. I hope he has much fun as I do calling and watching him. He's great. I love Coach. Steve says, think you're doing great, excellent content. Nothing wrong with honest opinions. Yes, you're going to get to my Midwest region. I'm catching up on the comments here, Durrell MVP. I do have a women's bracket. I'm going to save that for tomorrow night. All right. So you want to hear my women's bracket, tune in tomorrow night. We'll have Frank Henderson on talking men's hoops, but we'll also look at my women's bracket. Thank you, Brad. Says he's new here. Love the channel. Great time to be a Hawk. Thank you very much, Brad. Please subscribe if you have not already done so. Very much appreciate that. Owen says, please talk about Trace Jackson Davis. Boy, that guy can ball. He struggles shooting the ball. That's why I'm still not sold on him for the NBA. But I think he's playing great if they get their legs back, because I think that's going to be an issue if they play tomorrow and then Thursday tomorrow, Thursday, and Saturday. It's going to be tough. They get to the second weekend though. all bets are off. I think it's going to be tough to do. Eric says, I can tell I posted too many comments. My battery is almost dead. Sorry about that, Eric. Brent, how much having other conference referees will affect who wins during the upcoming tournament? I certainly think it'll affect things. You have the Big Ten conference that's kind of known for its referees allowing more contact. I don't think the Big Ten officials, ever since Ed Hightower left, I think officiating the Big Ten has kind of gone downhill. But in answer to your question, I think it will help teams like an Iowa, like a Purdue even. Although I think Purdue sort of benefited from that yesterday. That's just my opinion. But I do think it will play a factor. But you're going to have a mix of Big Ten officials, too, for other conferences. So it's going to have the kind of reverse effect for the SECs of the world. The SEC is a physical conference, but not nearly as physical as the Big Ten. A conference like the West Coast Conference or the AAC or the Mountain West, I think that's where the biggest curve is going to be, having some of those physically those referees from more physical conferences. I think that would probably be the biggest curve. Alex says he'll be a mod for $10 an hour. That's funny. If somebody's willing to pay me $10 an hour, then I can maybe talk to you about a cut of that. But I'm not doing this show for. We take donations here. We make a little bit off of advertising, very little. So I would love to be able to pay someone to be a mod, Alex, but unfortunately, it's not in the budget. Maybe it will be someday. Never know. Luke, Hawkeyes to the Final Four. Well, Darius, Hawkeye Nation, what's up? Roll Tide Roll. Who's ready for the big dance? He did not see that I've got Alabama losing in the first round. Sorry, Ladarius. I'm actually getting beat in the first round. I'm sorry. I'm not saying I'm rooting against them, but Crimson Tide have been a bit inconsistent. I think we can agree with that. I won't be upset if they win. But I've got them losing in the first round. They got a tough matchup against a team that will have had a game under their belt. The Shen 14. I'm thinking of Purdue as UCF like in 2020. That would be so awesome because Taco Fall was tall like Zach Edey. Well, and Purdue's got a lot more talent than that UCF team did. There's no question about that. George says if Iowa meets Providence in the round of 32, maybe you could get Keno, former Providence coach. Ed Cooley runs the same flex offense. I bet he has some insight. Are you talking about? Okay, you're talking about it as a guest. That's a great idea, George. Appreciate that. That's actually a great idea. Thank you for that. I hadn't even thought about the connection there. I had to kind of stop and think what you were talking about. Luke says, how far will Baylor make it in the tourney? Well, I'm going to get to my Final Four. I've got them in my Final Four, Luke. So stay tuned for my Final Four. Michael says, is it 100% sure that Keegan leaves, or does he stay to play another year with Chris? I think it's possible that he comes back. I think it's probable that he will not. But you never know. You never say never with these things. He does have family. I mean, I don't think Chris is going anywhere. But he's going to be a lottery. I mean, he's a top 10 pick. He might be a top 5 pick. I think it was Seth Greenberg the other day on ESPN said that he's the first or second overall pick. I don't know if that's true, but I definitely think that Keegan is likely gone. I'll be surprised if he comes back. I won't be upset. I certainly won't be upset if he comes back next year and they can go get a 3-point shooter. Maybe even more important than a big man. Iowa's got a chance of going to the Final Four next year. If they don't have it this year, they've got a chance next year. Tommy says, is Baylor overrated? I don't think so. Now, Dylan disagrees with me, I see. He does. Apparently, he thinks that they're overrated. I don't think they are. I think they got those early losses out of their system. I like the Bears. Again, they know how to win in this tournament. Hyperlocal, did you see Perkins hugging Larry Scarato? I did see that. That was very funny. Saw that on Twitter. Owen Guest. My uncle is Archie Miller. Interesting. I could get him on the call if you want. Absolutely. Archie Miller. Get Archie Miller on this show. Absolutely, Owen. Give him our number right there at the bottom, 515-635-1601. But have him shoot me a text or call. Have him shoot me a text if he's willing to come on the show at some point this week. Have him shoot me a text and I'll get back to him. I don't want to talk to him while we're live on the show. We can arrange that off the air. Ladarius says, who do I have winning it all? I'm going to share that here momentarily. Jordan says, saw some analysts saying Keegan was getting consideration for the second overall pick after this weekend. Think the odds are more likely that Chris is also leaving than Keegan coming back. You might be right on that. I don't think Chris is going anywhere. I have not seen Chris on draft boards. Now, maybe he's sneaking into the second round on some, but I don't think that's happening. And I don't think that'd be smart, in my opinion. I doubt that's going to happen. I don't think Kenyon would probably encourage that, because Chris has got an opportunity to be a first-round draft pick next year if he can continue to develop like his brother did. All right. And the Shen 14 says Keegan is so lengthy, it's insane. Like, he is lengthy in every place, very lengthy, long and fast. Great player, top pick in the draft for sure. No arguments for me. Riva Monster, change my profile picture to a Hawkeye tailgate so I can be your co-host now. Thank you for that, River Monster. And with that being said, Darius says he thinks Arizona's going to win it all. Jordan says he doesn't think Chris will leave. But yeah, I doesn't think Keegan's coming back. I get that. All right, let's get to my West region. I know we've had a long pause here. I was kind of building anticipation, wanted to get caught up on the chat. I knew people were going to disagree with my Arizona pick, and people disagree with Baylor, whatever. Let's get to my Midwest region. Let me scroll over here so that I have this ready before I start sharing my screen so that I'm not shocking anybody. I'd love to know what people think I'm going to pick. Like, what do you think are my picks? Because I've been accused of being a cynic at times. So who do you think I'm picking in my Midwest region? Let me know. I'd love to know. All right, here we go. My Midwest region. I am going to pull it up now, maybe. I'm going to zoom in here so I'm not giving it away all at once. All right. So if you're seeing this, I've got Kansas beating Texas Southern, Corpus Christi, whoever wins that game. And I see a couple people in the chat here. Jordan thinks I've got Iowa over Auburn. Ladarius says he wants Alabama to win it all. Harpo thinks I've got Iowa versus Wisconsin in the Elite Eight. Steve thinks I've got Kansas beating Iowa. You're taking South Dakota State all the way. All right. Let's just see here. Kansas over Texas Southern in the first round. San Diego State over Creighton. Creighton over San Diego State. I'm getting the SDSUs mixed up here. Creighton, the Blue Jays have had their moments. They've been pretty steady in the Big East tournament. Really impressive win over Providence. I've got the Blue Jays moving on over the Aztecs. And I've got Kansas beating Creighton. I really don't foresee Kansas running into any problems before the Sweet 16. I think this is a pretty darn favorable draw for the Jayhawks. I think they have a pretty breezy route to the Sweet 16. As you can see, I've got Iowa over Richmond. Okay, I've got Iowa over Richmond. The Spiders of Richmond, could give Iowa some problems. They're coming off 4 games in 4 days as well. They run a kind of a odd offensive set. Iowa's going to, defensively going to be tested. They were tested against Purdue. I have faith right now in Iowa's defense, and I haven't said that in several years. But this year, throughout the season, Iowa has inspired faith. Now, they still go through stretches at times where they don't play great man-to-man defense. I don't love them when they're in the zone, but boy, they played well defensively on Sunday. I think Iowa beats Richmond. South Dakota State, I've got an upset over Providence, folks. I went back and forth on this one. I could see the Friars winning, but I think this is just your perfect upset bid. I think Providence is overrated. Big East champions, but I think they're probably the 3rd or 4th best team in that conference, despite the fact that they played an unbalanced schedule and won the conference. They had a few COVID games that were not made up. The Jackrabbits are a hot pick to upset the Friars, and again, I've won a lot of games this year. I think they've got the longest winning streak in the country right now, if I'm not mistaken. The Jackrabbits will face Iowa for a spot in the Sweet 16. And as I said yesterday with Coach Close, I thought Iowa was going to get to the Sweet 16. I stand by that. And boy, that's not a difficult. Listen, there's going to be challenges. Richmond's, and I'm not penciling in Iowa and saying I'm not putting my mortgaging my house on this. Richmond could beat Iowa. I mean, basically, once you get off the 1-16 games, you could argue really are not. I don't see any of those being upsets. I think it'd be difficult. I really don't see any of them being close. Now, it's possible one of them could be, but more than likely, those are all pretty much guarantees that the 1 seeds are moving on to the first round. The 2-15s get a bit more unsteady, but 5-12, you're always going to get those 12-5 upsets. I don't think it's going to happen here, but Richmond did just rattle off 4 straight wins, including against the top 3 teams in the A10. All right, including Dayton, who was the first team out of the draw, according to the selection committee, and Davidson, who's in the draw, won the regular season title. I'm trying to think who the third team was in the A10, but whoever the third seed was in that conference, Richmond won. So they're going to be gassed too, but played 4 games in 4 days, just like the Hawkeyes, and I just think South Dakota State pulls it off. Iowa moves on to the Sweet 16 to face the Kansas Jayhawks. Moving along here, LSU beating Iowa State. Another one I went back and forth on. Will Wade getting fired from LSU. Should have been fired probably 2-3 years ago. I think LSU, the talent they have there, I think they're going to find a way to win. I think they come together. This can go one of 2 ways. Either LSU is completely sideways without their head coach, or they come together. Perhaps Will Wade was not real liked by his players. I don't know. But I think LSU beats Iowa State. Iowa State has problems putting the ball in the hoop, have problems scoring. I think the Tigers move on. Wisconsin and Colgate. A caller brought that up earlier. I think Wisconsin wins that game. And caller, I'm going to put you on hold here. We got a caller on the line. I'm going to put you on hold here. I'll get back to you in a moment. I've got Wisconsin winning, Miami over USC. I've been higher on Miami than most people, too. I'm higher on Notre Dame and Miami out of the ACC than a lot of people are. And I'm not high on USC. I made that clear earlier. Mobley's health is of supreme importance. I think the Hurricanes get it done, and Auburn beats Jacksonville State pretty handily. Miami-Auburn, I think Auburn wins that game pretty comfortably. Pretty favorable draw for the Tigers, in my opinion. I know some people aren't real high on Auburn now that they've started to falter. I was never high on Auburn during the regular season, but again, folks, I look at this tournament draw, and I base it on matchups, and I base it on who's playing well, who's hot, who's peaking at the right time, who peaked at the wrong time. And I just think Auburn, even though you could argue they peaked early, I think they're playing with house money. They're playing without as much pressure as when they were the number 1 team in the country by a lot of people. I think they move on over Miami. And as you see, I've got LSU upsetting Wisconsin. I don't love Wisconsin. Johnny Davis's health is going to be a big question mark. I think they can get by Colgate without him. And the fact that I even have to say that shows that that's just not a real talented roster. It's an experienced roster, but it's not a real talented roster. If LSU beats Iowa State, that means they probably came together as a team. I think they can beat Wisconsin. They move on to the Sweet 16 to face Auburn. All right, let's move back up to the top of my draw. Let's actually move back down. Let's go down here. We'll go to the LSU-Auburn matchup first for a spot in the Elite Eight, and I have got the Auburn Tigers moving on, despite the fact that I was not high on Auburn. At some point, LSU, I mean, look, they're an 11 seed, or excuse me, they're a 6 seed. They earned their way here, won a lot of games in the SEC. And again, I think the SEC is one of the 3 best conferences in the country. I think Bruce Pearl's offense will give a lot of teams problems once we get to the tournament. And if they can get rolling, a lot of talent on that Tigers roster. I give Pearl a lot of credit for what he's done down there. I think Auburn gets by LSU, but a nice little run to the Sweet 16 and an improbable run, you could say, because of the departure of their head coach. Moving back up to the Kansas-Iowa matchup in Chicago, if it happens. If Iowa gets to the Sweet 16, it'll be played in Chicago. A lot of Jayhawk fans in Chicago, a lot of fans in Chicago, but a lot of Iowa fans in Chicago. And there'll be a lot of Iowa fans that already have tickets or will get tickets and will be willing to pay top dollar for their tickets from Eastern Iowa, all parts of Iowa, and will make the trek over to Chicago. We mentioned the David McCormick situation. That matchup, you've got the storyline of Agbaji and how good he is. I think you get Tony. I think Perkins probably matches up with Agbaji. I actually liked how Perkins played against Ivy yesterday. I think Iowa can do it. Again, McCormick's probably the biggest problem for Iowa. Can Rebraca, can he hang with McCormick? I think Rebraca has been battling all year. He's just had some tough matchups. So with that being said, who do I have winning that game and advancing to the Elite Eight? I have the Iowa Hawkeyes moving on to my Elite Eight. All right, moving on to the Elite Eight, which means they will play Auburn, who beat LSU. And I have in that matchup, I've got Auburn. I think Iowa gets beaten in the Elite Eight. I think their unbelievable run, which means they would have won at that point, 7 straight games? 7 straight games from the Big Ten tournament to the NCAA tournament. That's a lot of basketball, a lot of winning basketball. Auburn's got a ton of talent. At this point, if the matchups go as I believe they will go, Auburn will have had a pretty comfortable ride there, and Iowa will have had a tough matchup with Kansas and a real grueling defeat. Iowa will have to come back and play Auburn just 2 days later. I think Auburn too much for the Hawkeyes, and the Auburn Tigers are my Final Four, a team to come out of the Midwest region. All right, let's get back to all the wonderful people who have come on here to insult my picks, agree with my picks, whatever. Dylan says that Richmond is slept on. Very well could be. Would not be shocked to see Richmond put up a fight against Iowa. I don't think they're going to win that game. Owen says, I think you're sleeping on Michael Sanchez on Texas Southern. I don't know who that is, but be happy to Google him later. Sean says Richmond will pose some problems with their tough defense. Again, I think the Spiders can beat a lot of teams. I just think Iowa's right now playing better than anybody, and if fatigue was a problem, it's going to be a problem for Richmond. Who do they have to match up with Keegan Murray? That's my big question. If I'm a Spider fan, who do they have to match up with Keegan Murray? I think that will be a problem for them. Obviously, I think defensively, if you're Richmond, you got to hope you can confuse Iowa's defense, because Iowa's defense, there's no question about it, is still the weak link. If there is one, it's Iowa's defense. And but again, anything's possible. Upsets happen in the NCAA tournament. That's a real thing. Owen says, really would like to hear what you think of Texas Southern. Again, I'll have to do more research on Texas Southern. I looked at their resume briefly. I don't believe that they are going to beat Kansas. Would I like that? Oh, I'd love that, right? I would love that, but I don't believe it's going to happen. Did Corey have any 12s beating a 5 seed? Did I? That's a good question, Ari Gold. Did I have any 12s beating a 5? Yeah, I had UAB. I had UAB beating Houston. I had UAB beating Houston. All right, apologize for making our caller wait. Thank you for calling from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
Luke from Orlando again. I was just curious to hear your take on, I thought it was pretty impressive that Iowa used 12 people. I think there's only 15 on the roster. All 12 played. How rare is that to use so many players in a championship game like that?
Oh, I'm sure it's pretty rare. Again, I don't have the numbers to bear that out, but I would guess that it's extremely rare error. And it was a smart play by Fran. Now, part of it was because of foul trouble. As you know, Philip Rebracha had problems staying out of foul trouble, staying on the court. Chris Murray, the same thing. And if you don't have Chris and Philip, you're in trouble because Iowa just does not have a post presence down low, and you do not want Keegan Murray guarding Zach Edey or Trevion Williams getting in foul trouble. That's a recipe for disaster. So I don't think Fran had much of a choice. I would like to think now that Fran has some confidence in playing a Gundelay or even Mulvey spot minutes if they go up against a big like Zach Edey. And there's not going to be many opportunities to do that. But you're right. The depth of this team is something that we've not seen in recent time.
Yeah, I tried to watch a lot of games, but didn't probably watch them as many as you. And I was just shocked. I think the only people that didn't play were Luca, Ash from Mount Vernon, and Kingsbury's son. But everyone else played in that game, which is obviously a gigantic game. I was just amazed by that, the depth there. But I didn't watch every game this year, so I was just curious on that.
Yeah, we saw Josh Gundelay play really well against Purdue in West Lafayette, but again, we had not seen him in in actual game minutes, I don't know the last time. And if you were going to see him in any game, you'd think you'd have seen him against Illinois, against Kofi Coburn, when they were really struggling defensively. And I'm a bit surprised Fran didn't play him in that game. They almost won it anyways. That shows you how tough this Iowa team is. They really don't have a post presence. I mean, Rebraca's 6'8". He's undersized, and I think he's playing out of position, and yet they're beating teams. That is why I keep saying if somehow Keegan comes back next year.
Layup. He had a sweet reverse layup, and then he had a 3-point play. I mean, I think on the 5th time down the court, he gets tired, but he looks pretty smooth in the limited minutes he had.
I agree. Yeah, and that's why I keep saying, if they can get a big man to develop, or you get one from the portal, but if they can get Ogundele or Mulvey to develop heading into next year, Keegan comes back. They're a 3-point shooter away from being a Final Four favorite. Not saying they'll definitely get there, and I don't think Keegan will come back. And those are 3 big variables. But I do think this team is that good, and you've got DeSante Bowen coming in next year. Josh Dix, if he's healthy, I question that because he's dealing with a leg injury. But no, I agree. It was good to see Ogundele and Mulvey back there, and hopefully they can contribute somewhere in this tournament.
Yeah, no. It's also it's interesting too with in the final minute. If you measure the game, usually one of the McCaffrey boys are in the game, and in that final stretch there, both were on the bench. Now Connor came in and hit a gigantic 3-point play, had an amazing pass to Kenyon at the end. But usually Fran has at least one of his sons in the game. And for a key crucial, he went with Sanford, who kind of delivered with some huge buckets.
Absolutely. Yeah. Sanford just hit, I mean, what is he, 4 of 4? He was fantastic. And maybe he becomes that elite 3-point shooter next year. I still think they need someone else. I mean, who do you have with Bohannon gone? But yeah, I'm high on Sanford, and he's got size. He's kind of like Duncan. If he can develop his defensive game, he can be a 3-and-D guy, kind of like Duncan Robinson for Michigan years ago, if you remember him. And he's playing in the NBA now. Peyton's interesting because of his size. He's a unique player.
Well, next year, Chris Murray's going to play 40 minutes. Keegan's going to be in the NBA, and then you'll have people fill in. But, huge win for Iowa.
Absolutely. And if there's any chance that Keegan comes back, I mean, we don't know until we know. Until he makes that announcement, I would always say there's a chance. But I agree with you. I think he's probably gone, regardless of the talent next year. Fran's got this program in a great spot right now. And I've been saying that for years. Like, they've had great talent. The offensive talent of this team over the past 5 years has been elite. What they've been missing is good defense. And part of that is individuals. I think from an athletic standpoint, they haven't had a lot of athleticism. That has changed this year. But I think Fran's teaching defense now more than he ever has, and it's showing up on the court.
Yeah, I would give Tony Perkins a lot of credit. Since he became a starter and getting more minutes, he's really been tough. He is very good at defense, and he's an excellent rebounder, and he's just just strong guard.
Absolutely. Tony Perkins has developed faster than anyone would have thought. I mean, I didn't know that Tony Perkins could ever be as good as he is right now, and he's a sophomore, so he could develop a consistent 3-point shot. I said this yesterday, and I'll bring this up to Coach Close tomorrow. I know it's really early to be making this kind of a statement, but if Tony Perkins can improve his ball handling a bit, and shoot the 3 better, slightly better than he is, because he's not a terrible 3-point shooter, but if he can do those things, improve those 2 things over the course of the next couple of years, this is a bold statement. But who's to say he couldn't play point guard in the NBA? Maybe not as a starter, but he's got the toughness, he's got the defense, he's got the athleticism, he's got the size to play point guard. I don't know. It's sort of an intriguing. He was playing some point yesterday. It'll be kind of interesting.
Bit of Mark Jackson that used to play for the Knicks.
Yeah.
Probably not as good a passer, but he's very similar to Mark Jackson that used to play for the Knicks.
I can see that. Yeah. And Mark Jackson's one of the, isn't he like in the top 5 for all-time assists in the NBA?
He's a great player.
Yeah. So I think you're onto something. I think this team, the depth of this team, and it can lead them a long way in the tournament. It's going to help them against a Richmond team that I'm looking at Richmond's roster. They're not nearly as deep as Iowa is, and that's gonna help you if Richmond's dealing with some squabbly legs after playing a full week as well.
Definitely. Great picks, and go Hawkeye.
Go Hawks, brother. Appreciate the call. And the call line is open. Call line is open if anybody would be interested in giving us a call. And here we go. Let's get our caller on the line here. Thank you for calling from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
Hello, Corey. It's still Real MVP. How you doing this evening?
I am doing great, Daryl MVP. How are you?
I'm doing great. Do you mind if I go over your bracket and just say what I have differently?
Well, before you do that, Daryl MVP, let me just show you my Final Four, okay? Because I want to make sure that I have my entire bracket out there so everybody can know what I've got. I want to get off this stream. We've been doing this stream for 2 hours, and that's about my limit. So this is going to be likely the last call, Daryl, but I do appreciate you calling in. So I'm going to share my screen. Everybody can see my Final Four and National Championship. Just as a recap, I've got Gonzaga playing Purdue, and I've got Tennessee playing Auburn. SEC matchup. You should like that. I'm high. I don't know why you're in such disagreement with my bracket. I got 2 SEC teams in my Final Four, Daryl.
Well, I appreciate that, but one of those SEC teams isn't my SEC team.
I know. You're not going to like that I've got Kentucky, but getting upset. Let me show you my my Final Four here, folks. Okay. Here it is. I've got Gonzaga beating Purdue, heading to New Orleans, in New Orleans, got them beating Purdue, and I've got Tennessee beating Auburn. It'll be a Gonzaga-Tennessee national title game with a Gonzaga win. And I think a rightful Gonzaga win. They've been the best team all year in college basketball, and I think they find a way to get it done. Now, I know that's not really going out on a real big limb, but I think Tennessee's sort of a trendy pick, as is Auburn and Purdue. What are your thoughts?
Corey, we waited 2 hours for the final game, and you give us chalk as your national title.
Chalk? How is Tennessee chalk? How is Tennessee chalk?
Gonzaga's chalk. Tennessee's up is the highest 3 seed according to the people to win it all.
Well, there's a reason for that. First of all, I think Gonzaga's the best team in the country.
Look, I'm not disagreeing with that. I understand why people are saying that.
You wanted me to come out here and make some wild pick just because I'm on a live stream, Daryl?
No, no. I want you to be honest, and that's why I appreciate it.
This is my honest pick. I think Gonzaga has the draw. Now, I think they could lose to a Texas Tech. I don't think they have a real easy draw because they do have some dangerous teams. I think Duke is dangerous if they get by Texas Tech. I do think Texas Tech wins that game. I think Texas Tech is dangerous. Now, you go up to the top of that bracket, I don't see Gonzaga losing to anybody up there. I don't see UConn beating them. I don't see Boise State or Memphis. I know you've got Memphis winning, and I respect your opinion on that. Vermont's not beating Gonzaga. Arkansas, if Arkansas, that's the crazy thing. This is what's crazy about the bracket. I'm acknowledging the fact that I think Arkansas loses in the first round, but I could also see Arkansas making an Elite 8 run. Because I saw them. You saw them in the SEC. That's a good Razorback team, but a bit up and down, and this tournament is weird. You and I both know it. You can have one bad day. There's no round-robin format. You win, and you go home. And so it's, you kind of have to go on a limb on a lot of these picks. I just think Gonzaga is so much better than most of these teams that they're not going to really be tested until probably the Elite 8.
Well, it's the beauty of the sport, Corey.
Absolutely.
So I would just kind of want to go region by region. If we could start with the South region.
Sure.
Corey, I know you have biases against the Pac-12 because you don't think they're a good
Wait a minute. What biases do I have against the Pac-12?
Let me put it this way. Arizona has been the best Pac-12 team in at least 5 years. They are just so much better. They are Gonzaga 2.0. They are the Final Four team out of that region. And this will shock you, Corey. I do not have Houston going to the Sweet 16. I have Chattanooga going to the Sweet 16.
You remember me too. Let's agree on something, Drill MVP. You remember me saying that I thought Chattanooga was dangerous.
Yes. I was shocked you didn't have them winning a game.
I just don't think they're. I think it's going to be hard for. That's why I've got Illinois going so far. I really do think Loyola last year was an exception. I think it's going to be hard for non-Big Ten teams who are not used to Kofi's size. What's Chattanooga going to throw at them to stop Kofi?
A lot of threes. A lot of threes.
They're going to have to hit a lot of threes, and they do take a lot of threes. They're going to need some magic like they got in their tournament. There's no question about that.
Oh, and they've got legit. I mean, they've got legit size, and they've got legit people who could play in the NBA. They're not scrubs.
You know what's funny about this, Drill MVP, going back to Arizona? You remember all the heat I took for picking Iowa over Michigan in the Big Ten football championship, right?
Yeah.
Apparently, I'm going to get the same heat from Arizona fans. I didn't know that this chat was flooded with Arizona fans, but I don't know. Let me just walk you through the schedule here real quick, Drill MVP. I know you know the schedule because you love college basketball. So Arizona beats Northern Arizona, Rio Grande Valley, a decent North Dakota State. I mean, that is a decent North Dakota State team, made the finals of the Summit League Championship, and they destroyed North Dakota State. I get that. Wichita State's not very good, beat them by 4, beat a Michigan team. At the time, Drill MVP, you know Michigan was dealing with a lot of problems. They got a lot better. They're a different team now than they were back in November and December. Beat Sacramento State, beat a bad Oregon State team, did beat Wyoming. You know I'm not real high in the Mountain West, but they did beat them convincingly. Won at Illinois. Illinois was a different team, though, too. I don't think Curbelo played in that game. They beat Northern Colorado, Cal Baptist. They lost to Tennessee, as you know.
Yeah, but Tennessee's good, and it was at Tennessee.
Correct. But we're talking about, I'm not denying that Arizona's not good. Let me make that clear. They're 31-3. I get that. But you just said that they're the Gonzaga of the Pac-12. So all I'm saying is I'm looking at their schedule. They lost by 16 to a very good UCLA team. And they had, then they came back, beat UCLA, beat a USC team. But like the Pac-12, who else have they beaten in the Pac-12 that just makes your jaw drop?
Well,
who else?
USC's good. I mean, USC isn't horrible.
I'm not saying they're horrible. No, I'm not saying they're horrible. But Drill MVP, it's a 2-team conference plus USC. That's it.
Well,
there's nobody else in that conference.
Okay, I get it for the top tier, but I don't think you're putting so much gap. It's hard to go on the road and win these games. Except for Oregon State. Oregon State's horrible.
Oregon State's horrible.
So for them to go out and do what they do, they won 3 games.
Yeah, I mean, Stanford's not good. Cal's crap. I mean, I hate to say that. I mean, I'm not talking about the players. I'm talking about the team performance-wise. They're no good. That's not a good team. All right?
It's still hard to go on the road in any environment and win a game.
I mean, Oregon State might be the worst team in the country.
Well, the worst Power 5 team, Power 6 team. I wouldn't go that far.
They're 3-28. I mean,
they did beat 3 teams, Corey.
Okay, they beat 3 teams, lost to 28. Let me tell you Oregon State's losses. They lost to Tulsa. They lost to Samford. They lost to Princeton. They lost to UC Davis. I mean,
they're not great. They're horrible.
What? Yeah,
but they did beat 3 teams, so at least 3 teams are worse than.
They beat Portland State at home. They beat Nicholls State at home, and they somehow beat Utah. Poor Utes.
Yeah, that's embarrassing. So Arizona, I think, is the big problem that you have in that region. Also, I would say for that region, I gave a little more love to Michigan. I actually had Michigan beating Tennessee.
Say that again. I'm sorry.
I had Michigan beating Tennessee.
You've got Michigan beating Tennessee. Okay, I'm not going to disagree. I mean, I've got Tennessee going to the national championship game, but it just takes one mad matchup. Michigan was very uninspiring against Indiana. I thought once they beat Ohio State at the end of the regular season, I thought they'd come on strong into the Big Ten tournament, and they really just didn't impress me. So I think Michigan wins a game. I don't know about the Volunteers. Volunteers are hot right now.
I get that, but I just haven't been sold on them all year. And maybe it's my bias from a Kentucky fan that's blinded me, because out of every team I want to see lose, Tennessee's the team I would like to see lose the most.
Yeah, I can see
But
that.
can we move on to your East region?
Let's do it. Let's move on to the East region. Let me find my East region. All right, so I got Purdue coming out of there.
Yeah, I don't understand the hope that you have in Purdue. If they play defense, they can win it all. But the problem is they ain't playing defense.
They played decent D yesterday. They played decent.
Yeah, but they didn't. It was nowhere near the level they'll need to if they're going to beat Kentucky or Baylor.
I mean, they were playing against one of the 2 or 3 best offenses in the country in Iowa.
Yeah, that is true, but Kentucky throws a different type of matchup with their big guy in Oscar Tshiebwe.
You're
So
saying
if
you
you-
don't think that Purdue can match up with bigs?
I do. Oscar Tshiebwe is by far the best big in the country. Nobody can match up against him.
Kofi Coburn on line 1.
Listen, Oscar Tshiebwe, let me put this stat up. He's had more rebounds per game than any other center since 1980 per game. He's dominant. He dominates every center he's played this year. Kansas, he dominated. Duke, he dominated. North Carolina, he dominated. There was one game he had more rebounds by himself than the other team combined.
I'm glad Iowa's not in the region. I said I'm glad Iowa's not in Kentucky's region.
Oh yeah.
But according to Dick Vitale, Iowa's going to play Kentucky in the national title game.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm not disrespecting Purdue. But I'm just saying that's how good I think Oscar Tshiebwe is. He's a different animal. The ball, he reminds me, I know this is a wild comparison, but he reminds me a lot of Dennis Rodman. He doesn't have the height, but he just always somehow gets the rebound every possession. And I mean, if you look at that game we lost to Tennessee, we shot 2 for 20 for 3. 2 for 20. And we lost by single digits. How many teams can shoot 2 for 20 and lose by single digits? Not a lot of them.
You're right.
Anyway, I like that you have Baylor super far. UCLA, that's fine. Give me your thought process with Texas.
I thought I gave you my thought process on Texas. Virginia Tech's the trendy pick. They're not nearly as talented as the Longhorns. I mean, I've just got them winning one game. What is that a shocker to you?
Yes, because I thought you liked hot teams.
I do, but Virginia Tech is they're not like Tennessee. Virginia Tech was not even a tournament team before the ACC championship.
Yeah, but they beat Duke.
I know, but as I recall, what did Georgia Tech do when they won the ACC title? Was that a year ago?
I have no idea, to be honest with you.
Somebody tell me. Didn't they flame out in the tournament, if I recall? He's still with us?
I don't know, but I think they'll win at least one game. And Texas hasn't impressed me whenever they've played anybody all year. So I like Virginia Tech, but I think that's a really good region. You also like San Francisco over Murray State, and the odds like San Francisco as well.
Yeah, I like San Francisco. I think that's a tough matchup for that's a scary matchup if I'm Kentucky. I think they'll get by it, but I think that's a dangerous game.
Corey, I'll be honest with you as a Kentucky fan. I'm looking at the East region. Now I'm looking at it on your screen. There isn't a team I'm worried about that concerns me.
Okay.
That-
Baylor should concern you, bud.
I know Baylor should, but I saw them lose to Alabama. And I saw them get run out of the building. So, anyway, how about we go to your Midwest region?
Okay. I got Auburn coming out of there, beating Iowa.
Yeah, this is something that confused me, okay? Because you've been the Auburn D-ranker, hater even, all year, and now you got Auburn in the Final Four.
You like that, don't you? Listen.
I'm
okay. How long have you been following my stuff and Mark Rogers stuff? You know this top 25 is based on resume, not who I think is the best team.
So you think Auburn's been playing like a great team recently?
No, I think Auburn was dealt a good draw. That's what this comes down to. I like them in matchups. It's not a matter of I don't say, well, this team's going to win 4 games because they've been playing really well, and this team's going to lose in the first round because they haven't been. It's all about matchups. So
okay, I can understand that, and I don't like the region either for most of these teams. But if Johnny Davis is healthy, I've got Wisconsin beating them. But that's a big if, and that's why it's just so frustrating for that region. Because I don't like Kansas, I don't like Auburn, Wisconsin, or Providence. I hate Providence.
I just want to say this to people who are being childish in the chat. Please, again, I've said it several times. I haven't had to ban anybody because I'm trying my hardest not to. I really don't want to do that. But the people who are being childish in the chat, please, you can have opinions. Do not go after someone else on here, okay? That's the last time I'm going to say that. Do not come after other people on here. There's a lot of people who have been loyal listeners all year. If you're on here just to troll, then you don't have to be here. You're welcome to be here, but please be kind to one another. You're not doing any good by throwing other people under the bus just because they have a different opinion than yours. So please grow up and don't make me ban. I really don't want to do that. And Darrell MVP, you know that. You know I don't block people. Yeah, I hate doing that. So, but please grow up, people.
Listen, I understand people are going to have disagreements with my opinion, and that's fine, or even the bracket opinion. But let me guarantee you something wrong. People first off, I call in when the people that complain don't call in, which is ironic in the first place. Second off, you're also going to be wrong on your bracket because nobody gets a perfect bracket.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't understand why people you can call in and disagree with me. I don't understand why what do people take personally? Like, it's a freaking bracket. I'm just making predictions. They could be wrong. They will be wrong. I'm not going to have a perfect bracket. I'd like to think that I am making somewhat educated opinions, but if you don't think I am, then you don't have to listen. I don't understand why people are so obsessed with going on platforms just to rip other people. I just don't get it. Do you have anything better to do with your time, with your life, than to troll? I've never understood it.
I've never understood it either. And especially, I don't get it. I don't think it's a bold take either to say Wisconsin could beat Auburn or that Kentucky can make the Final Four. Actually, if you look on ESPN, Kentucky's almost favored to win that region against Baylor. Last I checked last night, it was 49.4% of people had Kentucky beating Baylor or making the Final Four, and 50% had Baylor. So, yeah. But anyway, forget them. Corey, do you know anything about South Dakota State?
I think I said earlier that they've got a kid from my hometown, Marshalltown, Iowa. Luke Apple. I know they've won a lot of games. They shoot the 3-ball really well. And they're from the Summit League, and the Summit League typically produces a team that's dangerous.
Yeah, well, there's certain games where people bet on the over-under. South Dakota State, Iowa, if that game, and I also have that, is played, the over is something I would look at very much because that over could be with 210, 215 points. I could see Keegan Murray maybe having 50 in that game.
50.
Yeah, 50.
Wow.
Well, that's how good Keegan Murray is, and that is the lack of defense South Dakota State will play. South Dakota State's defense is horrendous. Horrendous. Wide open threes, open layups, missed assignments all day, every day. But they can shoot the thing. I mean, they shoot 45% for three all year. They got tons of shooters, but they cannot outshoot Iowa. So I think that's all I got for you. I really liked your bracket, Corey, other than everything that I had different than yours.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that.
Please set up a tournament challenge.
I will do
and
that.
If you're a hater, please put in the brackets so that way we can gain knowledge from you.
Absolutely. And if you're a hater and you're going to rip other people, like I said, I am going to block you, but it'd be better if you just left because there's just no place for that here. So, but appreciate the phone call, Darrell, as always.
Yeah, no problem.
Have a great night.
You do the same.
All right. Appreciate everybody calling in and chatting this evening. We'll take one more call because I saw somebody was trying to give us a call while we were on the phone with the real MVP. Phone number is 515-635-1601. 515-635-1601. If you want to give us a call, I'll give you about 30 more seconds, and then we're going to shut this stream down for the night. All right, let's get to our last caller here. Thank you for calling from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
My name is Red House.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing pretty good.
So I have a couple questions. So I'm assuming the stream's probably delayed a little bit, which is fine. So I actually go to Baylor, and I've been watching Baylor all year, and we lost one of our centers, John Mutachua, and we lost LJ Fryer, who were two really big pieces. So I would definitely say that Baylor's not favored, even in our bracket. I would definitely say Kentucky is, but I still have Baylor going to the Final Four, in my opinion. We beat Kansas, one of our last games of the year, at home, which helped. And we did not do well in the Big 12 tournament, which was kind of rough, but I still believe in us, and I think we have that championship DNA from last year that will help us get to the Final Four. And once we get to there, beating Gonzaga will be very tough for sure.
Absolutely. I think Baylor's got a chance. I nearly placed them in my Final Four. I do believe they've got a shot. I mean, Purdue right now, I think the real MVP's argument against me is completely valid. Purdue has not played defense all year, and I am sort of going out on a limb, assuming that they're going to start playing defense because they have the athletes to do that. They have the size to do that, the length. But I like Baylor. I'm with you. I've been on Baylor all year. I think they're better than their record indicates. I think they got some losses out of their system early. I would not be shocked to see Baylor in the Final Four.
Yeah, the one thing I am scared about, though, is UCLA being a 4 seed. Because I think they're bringing back their team pretty much from last year.
Yeah, and they played a tough schedule.
And
they played a tough schedule in the non-con.
I know, and last year they made the Final Four and they ended up losing to Gonzaga, I think. So I don't really want to run into that team this year. But anyway, I think if we get past UCLA, I think we can for sure beat Kentucky or Purdue. Either team, I think Baylor should win that game.
I think it'll be an entertaining game. I can tell you that. Kentucky's got the big, UCLA's got some proven guard play. Baylor's the defending champs. That I think whoever comes out of those two regions and matches up in the Final Four, there's a lot of good teams on that side of the bracket.
Yeah, I am curious about Iowa a little bit. So this is my first time on the channel that tell me a little bit about Iowa. I know they won the Big Ten championship, but they're a lower seed this year. Do you think they'll do something special in this bracket?
I mean, I've got Iowa in my Elite Eight. I don't think that there's any guarantee that they get there. I think that, first of all, Iowa fans, So you can kind of be familiar with where Iowa fans are at. Iowa fans just won a
Mhm.
Sweet 16 trip. Haven't been to the Sweet 16 since 1999.
Yeah.
So I think they're going to be playing with house money. If they get to Chicago, that's a short drive for Iowa fans against Kansas for the regional.
Mhm.
I think they can beat
It'll be kind of
Kansas,
a
but
home crowd.
I think it's going to be I think it's going to be a difficult task to beat Kansas and Auburn in 3 days. Beat both those teams in 2 games in 3 days. And but it would be a fascinating matchup. Bruce Pearl versus his old team in Iowa.
Mhm.
But no, Iowa's one of the hottest teams in the country right there. Right there with Tennessee, right there with Arizona. They're one of the hottest teams out there.
Yeah, I definitely think Providence won't give them much trouble, but I don't think they'll get past Kansas for sure, just because they have, I can't remember his name on Kansas. He's like one of the best players in the country. Is it like Ajua or something like that?
Agbaji, yep.
Abaji, yeah, he's like one of the best players in the country right now, and like he's been playing insane recently in the Big 12 championship. So I definitely don't see Iowa getting past Kansas, but you never know. I mean, anything happens in March Madness. You can't predict that.
Absolutely. It's what makes this tournament great. I keep saying that. It's what makes the tournament great and what makes this time of the year. If you're a sports fan, it's the greatest time of the year.
Yeah, for sure. I'm really excited for it. But yeah, that's pretty much all. I just want to call in, see like what your take on Baylor was and all that. But
thanks, Rhett.
that's pretty much it. So
appreciate the call. Have a great night, sir.
Good rest of your night.
Thank you. You too. Appreciate that call to finish things off, Rhett, and to everybody here who has taken the time. A reminder, if you want to support the channel, as always, I try not to talk too much about it during a live stream. But if you want to support the channel by more than just subscribing, please donate. You can super chat with the donate button below this stream. You can also donate in the description below. There's a link to donate to the channel. Support my operations here at From the Hawkeye of the Storm. We do live post-game shows after every Iowa men's basketball game. And we'll also be doing post-game shows after every Iowa women's basketball game. I'll be going through my bracket a bit quicker tomorrow. My women's bracket tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Central Time. 9 p.m. Central Time for my show tomorrow. We'll also have Frank Henderson, Tony Perkins' uncle on that show, and then a live show with some really special guests on Wednesday. And possibly a Sweet 16 matchup, Iowa-Kansas. We can talk about that with Coach Close and certainly Frank Henderson tomorrow. I know he'll have some interesting thoughts. And then but of course, it's Iowa-Richmond first and foremost in Buffalo, New York, the 5 versus 12 matchup between the Spiders and the Hawkeyes. So first things first, tomorrow at 4:30 over at Iowa at the Voice of College Football, our live show with Mark Rogers. We break Iowa football down, talking spring ball. We'll preview another position tomorrow afternoon over at his channel, Iowa Football at the Voice of College Football. We'll be there live, taking your comments, your chats for the hour. And then again, I'll be back right here on this channel from the Hawkeye of the Storm. This show and these shows these next couple of days will not be podcasted. We'll podcast the show on Wednesday, but this show and the show tomorrow night, I don't anticipate tomorrow. We'll see this show. I'm not going to podcast this show because this was kind of just a free for all, and it was a very visual show. So I don't want to clutter the podcast platforms. I do want to answer Ladarius's question. He says, "Do you stream baseball, softball game? Just looking for a reason to return." I don't do much with baseball, softball. Iowa baseball just getting underway. I do follow the Hawks, but just enough time in the day to do this. But appreciate you being here, Ladarius. And I want to answer your question real quickly about Alabama. First of all, Ladarius, I think Rutgers beats Notre Dame. I think it's going to be a great game Wednesday night. And as it relates to Alabama, I know you asked how far can they get. I think they could get to the Elite Eight if they play well. But I mean, they beat Baylor, beat Alabama. Alabama. See, we can tell I'm 2.5 hours in. They beat Baylor. They beat Gonzaga. That's a good Crimson Tide team, but they've been inconsistent all year, and it's been a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde type deal. I think they're going to lose because I think Rutgers is playing with house money, and Rutgers is also going to have a game under their belt in that first 4 wins. So, Brandon, he's from Canada as well. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it, and appreciated all our callers tonight, including our other one including Keith from Canada earlier tonight. So I'll be back tomorrow night, 4:30 p.m. Central Time. Subscribe here from the Hawkeye of the Storm on YouTube. Follow on Twitter and Facebook. We'll talk to you tomorrow at the Iowa, the Voice of College Football channel at 4:30 p.m. Central Time, and at my channel right here from the Hawkeye of the Storm at 9 p.m. Central Time, breaking down all things Hawkeyes. Have a great night.